Chapter 51. Fast. Extremely fast. Luo Yi's footwork had reached an unimaginable level. In an instant, he was in front of Lin Xian. The disciples in the stands were in an uproar. Most of them did not see Luo Yi's movements clearly. However, this did not hinder their support for Luo Yi. His footwork has improved again. In the resting area, Duanfei looked at Luo Yi on the stage and whispered with a smile. I'm afraid that other than Duanfei, few people can match Luo Yi's footwork, Hua Yangping said in a low voice. Humph! Yan Kong's face was gloomy. He did not like the two people on the stage. It's best if both of them are injured. Without any sound, it arrived in an instant. Luo Yi's cultivation had reached the 6th level of the Meridian stage. His high-grade yellow-rank martial art, wind-walking steps, had been practiced to the phenomenal stage. In terms of footwork, other than Duanfei, he was not afraid of anyone. Misty Traceless Sword! The sword came out silently, like an antelope hanging its horn, untraceable. The long sword shadow could not be seen in the air. There was only sword chi that filled the sky, turning into a sword net that surrounded Lin Xian. What a terrifying sword technique! This sword technique was far above the ordinary 6th level of the Meridian stage. The battle group was indeed full of elites. The unparalleled sword chi cut the ground around Lin Xian into countless pieces. It was a shocking sight. The space Lin Xian could stand was getting smaller and smaller. He was about to be injured by the sword chi. At this time, Lin Xian moved. The red flame sword swept out, drawing a full moon in front of him. Ding! 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 The sword chi hit the sword body, bursting into sparks and cutting the sword net. At the same time, on the red flame sword, the figure of a giant mountain was faintly discernible. Lonely Mountain Sword Technique! Lin Xian slashed out with his sword. It was as if a mountain was crashing down, causing the surrounding space to tremble. The net of swords in the air was crushed into pieces before finally shattering into pieces. Whoosh! Luo Yi did not expect Lin Xian's sword technique to be so powerful. He could only retreat hastily. At the same time, he knew that he had met his match. Sword Shadow Mountain Force! This is sword force! He actually managed to condense sword force! At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian in shock. No one would have thought that a disciple with such a low ranking would have sword force. Damn it, why is this guy so powerful? Yan Kong's face was terrifyingly gloomy. Hua Yangping, who was beside him, was also silent. Even Jiang Yulong and the others looked at Lin Xian in surprise. Duanfei and the others were still fine, but Jiang Yulong's eyes were incomparably cold. Good boy, I didn't expect you to grow so fast. It just so happens that I'll deal with you on the arena this time and let you know that even if you've condensed sword force, you're still trash. On the golden spectator stands, the elders were also slightly surprised. Elder Fong, on the other hand, was all smiles as he stroked his beard, looking as if he had known all along. Sword force was a kind of aura that would be displayed after the sword art had reached a certain level. Its power was incomparably great. To be able to display sword force, one must have at least reached the perfection stage in sword arts. Very clearly, Lin Xian's Lonely Mountain sword art had long reached the perfection stage. A thick sword aura slashed out, cutting a deep trench in the ground. Luo Yi relied on his outstanding movement technique to continuously move around the arena. Misty Ripple Traceless Sword. The sword light was like water ripples, rippling out, incomparably dazzling. The spiritual energy in the air fluctuated violently, surging towards Lin Xian like a tide. Lin Xian was very calm. He was neither hurried nor slow. On the dark red great sword, the Lonely Mountain's reflection was incomparably ethereal. Every sword had the force of 10,000 pounds. He did not take the initiative to attack, but assumed a defensive posture, blocking Luo Yi's sword moves one by one. On the arena, the dazzling sword light and ear-piercing rumbling filled the air. Luo Yi's sword art became increasingly smooth. He had never displayed the misty ripple traceless sword to such an extreme level. The sword art soared into the air, and the sword was traceless. Every move had an ethereal feeling. He was completely integrated into the sword art, unable to extricate himself. He had been stuck in the great success stage for a long time, but could not break through. But now, that stubborn bottleneck had loosened a little. At this time, if he was hit or Lin Xian was hit by him, this wonderful state would be interrupted, and Luo Yi would lose a chance to break through. However, with so many sword thrusts, not a single one hurt Lin Xian. They were all blocked. Moreover, Lin Xian's moves were clearly coordinated, allowing his sword art to proceed smoothly. One attacked and one defended. The attack was incomparably fierce, dazzling, and the defense was watertight, as solid as Mount Tai. The disciples on the spectators' stand were stunned for a moment. Normally, they wouldn't be able to see such a vivid battle. Every move contained a wonderful transformation. Many disciples were delighted, as if they had comprehended something. However, there were also many disciples who could not understand the situation on the arena. Some of the members of the battle group were dancing with joy. Senior brother Luo is amazing. His opponent is unable to fight back. Senior brother Luo, go for it. Defeat him in one go. Just as the disciples of the battle group were cheering, the situation on the arena changed. With a boom, the long sword in Luo Yi's hand shone brightly, almost covering half of the arena. Sword hums were constantly emitted. Senior brother Luo is going to use a big move. Some disciples of the battle group who did not know what was going on shouted. When the sword was unleashed, the sky was filled with cold light. It was like the autumn shadow of a cold pond, chilling to the bone. On Luo Yi's long sword, there seemed to be something special condensed, causing its power to more than double. Sword force again! The participating disciples were shocked. How can Luo Yi have sword force? Could it be that his sword art has reached the great perfection stage? Only a few outstanding disciples, such as the top 10 disciples and the elders, knew what happened just now. Damn it, this Lin Xian actually helped Luo Yi break through. How can he be so kind? Yan Kong gritted his teeth. Jiang Yulong's face was also ugly. Lin Xian's strength had once again exceeded his expectations. Moreover, there was another strong opponent in the battle group. How could he be happy? On the other hand, Duan Fei was smiling. He was in a good mood. Even the fairy-like Xingqian looked at Lin Xian a few more times. She seemed to be very interested in him. After the sword light disappeared, Luo Yi's face was filled with excitement. He could not wait to look up to the sky and roar. He could not remember how long it had been. He could not improve his swordsmanship, but now he had broken through to the perfection realm. How could he not be happy? However, he knew that all of this was thanks to the young man opposite him. Brother Lin, thank you. I, Luo Yi, will remember this favor. Lin Xian smiled. Your swordsmanship is very exquisite. A breakthrough is only a matter of time. In fact, Lin Xian did not use his full strength. Instead, he chose to help Luo Yi because he felt that Luo Yi was a good person. He was not as arrogant as the others. Moreover, Luo Yi's footwork had once broadened his horizons. Now that he helped him, it was not a big deal. Moreover, he could also feel the sword force brought about by different swordsmanship. He also had a new understanding. Wait until I completely understand the sword force. I will fight with you again, Luo Yi said seriously. The top 10 disciples are very strong. You have to be careful. This bold and unrestrained youth laughed heartily, and then jumped down from the arena. The judge was also impressed by Lin Xian's bearing. He had never seen someone who took the initiative to help his opponent break through. Just based on this, Lin Xian was enough to make him look at him in a new light. Number 135, Lin Xian wins. Chapter 52. Number 135, Lin Xian wins. The referee's voice echoed in the martial arts practice field. In the stands, a group of disciples from the battle group were dumbfounded. They didn't know what had happened. In the following matches, Lin Xian defeated his opponents in just a few moves. He appeared to be very relaxed. Too strong! Does he have the strength to be in the top 20 of the outer list? Many disciples exclaimed. At this point, everyone listed Lin Xian as a genius expert. Many disciples even looked forward to Lin Xian breaking the current situation. For example, becoming another top expert in the outer sect. It's too difficult. Although Lin Xian's performance is very powerful, there's still a gap between him and the outer sect's 4 heroes. Even if it's the top 10, he might not be able to squeeze in. Some people didn't think highly of Lin Xian. Not necessarily. Lin Xian doesn't even have spiritual power now. He must have reserved his strength. I think he definitely has the chance to make it to the top 10. Maybe he's a body cultivator and his spiritual power isn't outstanding. Many people didn't believe that Lin Xian still had a strong spiritual power. If that was the case, he was too scary. Next match, Shangguan Luyun vs Yan Kong. Those who were discussing Lin Xian stopped talking. All of them looked at the first arena with burning eyes. Shangguan Luyun, the number 1 in the outer sect and the leader of the 4 heroes. He didn't belong to any faction, but no one dared to provoke him. Yan Kong's face was darker than charcoal. He couldn't help but curse. He wanted to forfeit, but due to his status, he could only bite the bullet and go up. As the person in charge of the outer sect of the Divine Might group, if he lost without a fight, it would have a huge impact on the Divine Might group. Fortunately, he was also an expert ranked 9th. Although he couldn't defeat Shangguan Luyun, he believed that he could still hold on for a while. Whoosh! Yan Kong leaped up and landed on the arena. Opposite him, Shangguan Luyun was like a demon. He stood with his hands behind his back. He didn't even open his eyes. Arrogant, too arrogant. Yan Kong was trembling from head to toe. Even if his opponent was the first-ranked disciple, he was still the 9th-ranked genius. In addition, he was the person in charge of the outer sect of the Shenwei group. His status was incomparably noble. When had he ever been disregarded like this? Therefore, he used his strongest move right from the start, intending to teach this first place a lesson. 8 directions limitless saber! Yan Kong slashed out with his saber. The saber aura came from all directions and surrounded Shangguan Luyun. Humph! This is a high-grade yellow-ranked martial art, and I've already practiced it to the large success stage. I don't believe you won't open your eyes. Yan Kong clenched his teeth and said, Crack! Just as Yan Kong was secretly pleased with himself, Shangguan Luyun, who was standing in the middle, stretched out his palm and made a clenched fist action. The blade aura in all directions shattered like a broken mirror. What? Yan Kong's face turned frighteningly pale. The disciples in the stands were also shocked by this move and forgot to cheer. Jiang Yulong suddenly straightened his body, his cold eyes staring straight at Shangguan Luyun. Has this fellow improved again? I'm really looking forward to fighting with you. I want everyone to know that I'm the number 1 in the outer sect. Duan Fei, Xin Qianer, and the others' eyes flashed. No one knew what they were thinking. On the golden stands, Elderly said in a deep voice, This child is not bad. On the stage, Yan Kong watched his attack shatter in an instant. He didn't even have the ability to resist. Shangguan Luyun was like a dazzling divine spear, standing straight on the stage. His tightly shut eyes still did not open. Boom! In the next moment, Yan Kong was directly sent flying by the condensed spiritual energy and fell outside the stage. Winner, Shangguan Luyun. Until the end of the match, the crowd only recovered from their shock. They were completely shocked by Shangguan Luyun's imposing manner. Unfathomable! This was Lin Xian's evaluation. He didn't expect that there would be such a person in the outer sect. Humph, the world is so big. There are so many geniuses and geniuses. When you leave Cloud State in the future, you will realize that the outside world is more exciting. The geniuses outside are even stronger, Lord Alcohol said in Lin Xian's mind. Other things aside, a disciple from the Palace of War Gods in Central State can destroy the entire Cloud State by himself. Lin Xian was stunned. It seemed that the outside world was more terrifying than he had imagined. When I have the chance, I must go to the Palace of War Gods to take a look, Lin Xian secretly decided. The match continued. During this period, there were many exciting battles. The crowd was mesmerized by the spectacle. However, a strange match attracted the attention of most people. Number 3 versus number 134. Jiang Yulong versus Yin Qingyi. The difference between the two rankings was huge. It immediately attracted everyone's attention. Many people asked about Yin Qingyi. Only then did they remember that lucky disciple. I'm afraid her luck has come to an end after meeting Jiang Yulong. Which one is Yin Qingyi? I must see her. On the spectator stands, the disciples were looking forward to it. Don't force yourself. If you really can't do it, just forfeit, Lin Xian said with concern. That's right. Jiang Yulong is very detestable. You'd better not fight him, Tang Yu advised from the side. I want to try. Yin Qingyi lowered her head and said softly. What? You? Tang Yu wanted to say something but was stopped by Lin Xian. Then, all the best. Lin Xian's voice was very warm. It was like the noon sun that shone into the girl's heart. Ah? Yin Qingyi lifted her small face and looked at Lin Xian in surprise. A trace of excitement appeared in her clear eyes. Yes. She nodded heavily. From the crowd, a skinny girl slowly walked out. Step by step, she walked towards arena number 5. She lowered her head and gripped the corner of her clothes tightly with her small hands as she walked into the arena. Humph! It's actually a little girl. Jiang Yulong stood arrogantly in the arena. He snorted coldly and said, Admit defeat. It's meaningless to compete with a low-level disciple like you. In the spectator stands, many people sympathized with Yin Qingyi because she was too weak. In front of Jiang Yulong, she was like a tree that could break at any time. However, this girl who looked weak and delicate on the outside insisted. Senior brother, please enlighten me. You don't know what's good for you. Jiang Yulong sneered. He pointed his finger like a sword, and a bright red sword she shot out from the tip of his finger. It whistled as it pierced towards Yin Qingyi. The crowd was nervous. They wanted to see how this weak girl was going to dodge this fierce attack. Unexpectedly, Yin Qingyi did not dodge at all. Instead, she stabbed her long sword into the ground and formed a strange sword gesture with her fingers. A translucent sword array appeared around her. There were faint runes flowing around it. As the girl's hand gesture changed, a light screen formed in front of her and protected her well. Whoosh! The red sword she hit the light screen and made the sound of ice and snow colliding. In the end, the two attacks reached a stalemate and dissipated in the air at the same time. No one expected this weak girl to be able to withstand Jiang Yulong's attack. Many people could not help but shout. Among them, the disciples of the battle group were even jeering and mocking Jiang Yulong. Get lost! Jiang Yulong was already in a bad mood. Lin Xian's sudden emergence, Duan Fei's calmness, and Shangguan Liuyun's unfathomable strength all made him feel a deep sense of danger. A ray of sword she shot out like a red waterfall and rushed towards Yin Qingyi with a roar. Ah! The girl exclaimed and hurriedly activated the sword array. However, she was quickly covered by the red light. Her weak body gradually flew into the sky. Amidst the audience's exclamations, her body gradually descended as if she was about to fall into the endless darkness. Suddenly, a ray of sunlight pierced through the darkness. A pair of strong arms caught her. Immediately after, spiritual energy filled with vitality rushed into her body. Yin Qingyi slowly opened her eyes and said in a low voice, Lin Xian. After Lin Xian caught Yin Qingyi, he quickly injected his spiritual energy into her. He was terrifyingly calm, like a ferocious beast that was about to explode. You deserve to die. He stared at Jiang Yulong and said in a low voice. Chapter 53. What? You can't even stand this little bit of pain? Jiang Yulong joked. Kid, you better pray you don't meet me. Otherwise, you'll end up miserable. You and I finally have a battle. When the time comes, I'll completely defeat you. Lin Xian supported Yin Qingyi back to the resting area. He actually dared to challenge Jiang Yulong? Too bold. Your news is outdated. This Lin Xian had already issued a challenge half a month ago. It seems like this time, it's going to be a fight to the death. Everyone was discussing, but most of them were not optimistic about Lin Xian's chances. After returning to the resting area, Lin Xian checked on Yin Qingyi's injuries. Fortunately, the sword formation had absorbed most of the power. Yin Qingyi was only sent flying by the aftershock and did not suffer too much damage. The competition continued and the top 8 were finally decided. Lin Xian successfully advanced. He could be the dark horse of this competition and attracted everyone's attention. Many disciples remembered this handsome youth with a dark red sword. His explosive moves and lonely mountain sword momentum were unforgettable. In the quarterfinals, the first match was between Shangguan Luyun and Lu Ming. The silent Shangguan Luyun still did not open his eyes. He defeated his opponent with just one move. This silent strength shocked everyone. It seemed that until now, no one could make this youth take it seriously. The second match was a battle between two geniuses. Duan Fei versus Xun Qian'er. Both of them were one of the 4 heroes of the outer sect. Both of them had outstanding looks and were well liked by many disciples. It could be said that both of them were evenly matched in terms of strength and fame. Unfortunately, between the two of them, only one of them would be able to continue. Xun Qian'er was dressed in green. Her figure was graceful like a fairy descending to the mortal world. The falling flower mysterious jade palm was even more dazzling. A pair of slender hands were flawless like white jade. Palm shadows filled the sky like falling flowers. Falling flower mysterious jade palm. A high-grade yellow-rank martial art. When practiced to the large success stage, it could cut through gold and break jade. It was impervious to fire and water. However, because it was easy to learn but difficult to master, it was ranked as one of the top 10 profound martial arts in the outer sect. However, not only had Xun Qian'er succeeded, but she had also reached the Great Circle. The palm images that filled the sky were like dancing petals, sparkling and translucent. However, Duan Fei knew that each of these beautiful flowers contained fatal killing intent. Dozens of palm shadows lined up in the air, forming a huge jade palm that covered the sky. This is palm force! Many disciples exclaimed. Swords have sword force, palms also have palm force. When all martial arts are practiced to perfection, they will form a kind of force. Any martial arts that can form a force will be extremely powerful. Is this the strength of the 4 heroes of the outer sect? They are indeed terrifying! The disciples on the viewing platform exclaimed in surprise. Even some of the elders were looking over carefully. Duan Fei's expression was solemn as he continuously walked around the arena. His movement technique was very graceful, and he always passed through the layers of palm shadows without any injuries. His white robes fluttered in the wind, leaving behind a series of afterimages in the void. This was an extremely profound footwork. Compared to him, Luoyi was simply like a beginner. Lin Xian stared at Duan Fei's figure, and constantly compared it with his own footwork. In the end, he was surprised to find that Duan Fei's footwork seemed to have surpassed the Great Circle realm, and reached a mysterious level. He carefully experienced it, and a pair of star-like eyes became more and more clear. At that moment, his heart was particularly clear, and he experienced something that was beyond the footwork itself. At that moment, the situation on the arena suddenly changed. The mysterious jade palm in the sky suddenly fell, like a giant palm seal that could destroy the world, enveloping the arena. Rumble! As the palm fell, the ground trembled. The rumbling sound shook the front row of disciples, and their faces turned pale and their bodies trembled. Gravel flew everywhere, and a deep palm print was left in the center of the arena. It was bottomless, and Duan Fei had disappeared. In the sky! A disciple exclaimed. In the sky, Duan Fei jumped high, stepped in the air, and glided for a short time. F***CK! What kind of footwork is that? He can stay in the air for a short time! Everyone stood up excitedly, and they were stunned. Even Shangguan Luyun, who meditated all year round, opened his eyes. His dark eyes stared at the white figure in the sky, and there was a flash of light in his eyes. On the golden grandstand, the elders exclaimed again and again, and they did not hide their admiration. I didn't expect there to be such a talented young man other than Shangguan Luyun. I'm afraid no one in the outer sect can beat him in terms of footwork, Elderly said with a smile. Yes, there are 2 seed-level disciples this time. It seems that our Black Heaven sect is going to prosper. The other elders also laughed. In the sky, Duan Fei took 7 consecutive steps, and his body left a stream of light in the air. At the same time, a long sword appeared in his hand. The sword light shone, and the sword she soared into the sky. White feather sword. In the sky, countless sword lights seemed to have turned into white feathers, whistling and shooting toward the arena. Each of them was lifelike and as sharp as a knife. Xingqianer also cried out. Her pair of jade palms were suffused with a green light, and the palm shadows that filled the sky collided with the white feathers, making clanging sounds. The 2 of them fought fiercely for hundreds of rounds. The exquisite moves in their hands were endless, and it was amazing. On the entire second arena, there were pits of various sizes, and there was not a single place that was intact. In the end, Duan Fei's skills were better, and he won the match with his ghostly footwork. When the 2 of them left the arena, there was a thunderous applause and countless cheers from the grandstand. Everyone seemed to have gone crazy, and they roared with all their might. Since the beginning of the match, this was the most thrilling match. There were no instant kills, and there was no complete abuse. The 2 of them were equal in strength, so the fight was naturally interesting to watch. The cheers lasted for a long time before it stopped, and the referee announced the next match. Jiang Yulong vs. Wang Meng. The whole scene could be said to be one-sided. Jiang Yulong slashed 3 times in a row, and each slash was like a fire dragon. The horrifying high temperature made many people's expressions change. This is a fire attribute spirit power! An elder exclaimed. He actually condensed an attribute. It was no wonder that the elder was surprised. Ordinary disciples could only condense an attribute spirit power after entering the inner sect and learning a profound rank cultivation technique. Almost no one in the outer sect could condense it. Even Shangguan Luyun and the others did not show it. Of course, this could also be because they deliberately hid their strength. However, to be able to condense an attribute spirit power in the outer sect was enough to show Jiang Yulong's talent. Jiang Yulong's expression was wild, and his black hair danced wildly. His entire body was enveloped in a fiery red spirit light, as if a fire god had descended. 3 slashes sent the 7th-ranked opponent flying, showing his strength. Shangguan, the first place this time will be mine! Jiang Yulong pointed his flaming sword at Shangguan Luyun, and his voice was full of confidence. Whoosh! Shangguan Luyun opened his eyes again, like a sleeping beast that was gradually waking up. His cold eyes turned into 2 purple lights that shot toward the arena. Jiang Yulong was not afraid at all. His eyes condensed 2 fire dragons and rushed toward the purple light. Boom! The 2 collided in midair, and sparks flew in all directions as terrifying energy swept in all directions. He actually dares to challenge Shangguan Luyun. Could it be that the number 1 in the outer sect will change hands? He has already condensed an attribute spirit power. Of course, he has the qualifications to challenge him. I'm really looking forward to their battle. Chapter 54. As the 2 of them confronted each other, an invisible aura instantly shrouded the crowd, making it hard for them to breathe. You have the qualifications to make me fight! This was the first time Shangguan Luyun spoke. His voice was a little low, like a dull thunderclap hibernating in the clouds. Shangguan Luyun was a man of few words. With just a few words, he went silent again. The purple light and invisible pressure dissipated like flowing water. Fight! 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 After a brief silence, the outer sect disciples in the stands burst into thunderous cheers. Of course, they hoped that the 2 of them would fight. This kind of duel between geniuses could only be seen in the inner sect qualifiers. It was impossible to see it at any other time. However, they also knew that if they wanted the 2 of them to fight, they would have to wait until the finals. The disciples in the stands temporarily suppressed their excitement and waited for the next match. The next match, Lin Xian vs. Hua Yanping. Hua Yanping, the genius disciple ranked 5th on the outer sect rankings, was second only to the outer sect's 4 heroes. He was in charge of the outer sect's law enforcement team and had extraordinary power. Some even suspected that his strength was very close to the outer sect's 4 heroes. His combat strength was almost invincible among those of the same level. Lin Xian was the dark horse of this competition. He went from the 135th place in the first round to the top 8. His strength was obvious to all, and he was the idol of the ordinary disciples. Kid, I didn't expect to fight with you. Don't worry, I won't go easy on you. Hua Yanping's voice had a hint of mockery. Back then, his casual attack was blocked by Lin Xian, causing him to lose face. In the end, he didn't even manage to catch him. Don't go easy on me. You don't even have a chance, Lin Xian said coldly. Lin Xian didn't have a good impression of this person. Back then, he wanted to catch him indiscriminately. Lin Xian had already blacklisted him. With the referee's order, Lin Xian pulled out the red flame sword from his back and slashed out. A lone mountain appeared. It was as heavy as 10,000 pounds, causing the void to buzz as it smashed towards Hua Yanping. Humph! Do you really think you're invincible with sword force? A mocking smile appeared on Hua Yanping's face. He pulled out the long sword from his waist and stabbed it into the ground. With a swipe of his finger, a black sword formation appeared beneath his feet. It was as black as ink, and its shape resembled an abyss. Sword array? Lin Xian was stunned. He did not expect Hua Yanping to be a sword array master. After a moment of surprise, Lin Xian regained his composure. No matter what you are, the sword in my hand can cut through everything. Within the black sword formation, Hua Yanping was smiling. He had enough confidence in this sword formation. Apart from the 4 heroes of the outer sect, no one else could break through his defense. With this formation, he could be said to be invincible. Lin Xian, oh Lin Xian, I'll let you know that there are some people you can't afford to offend. Even if you have Elder Fang's support, I can still cripple you in the arena. Hua Yanping could almost see Lin Xian's helpless expression as he fell to the ground. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but laugh wildly. At this moment, in the resting area of the spectator stands, Yin Qingyi looked nervous. Her small hands gripped the corner of her clothes tightly. A trace of anxiety appeared on her pale face. She was also a sword array master, so she could clearly feel the terror of the black sword formation. Lin Xian, nothing must happen to you, Yin Qingyi said to herself. Swoosh! Just when the red flaming sword was 1 meter away from Hua Yanping's head, the black sword formation suddenly emitted a black light. Strands of black sword chi intertwined with each other, forming a flashing sword chi defense. Boom! Lin Xian's sword carried the strength of a mountain. The violent sword chi caused the surrounding air to whistle as if a real mountain was pressing down. The sword slashed down on the black sword chi defense. Countless chi waves rolled around the two of them. The power overflowed from the slash, leaving deep grooves in the ground. They were at least a foot deep, extending all the way to the bottom of the arena. One strike was so terrifying. However, the black sword chi only rolled violently a few times. Then, to the horror of the crowd, it was intact. Ha ha! Lin Xian, is this your strongest attack? It's so weak! Hua Yanping laughed wantonly. He could now torture Lin Xian as he pleased. Captain Hua is mighty! In the spectator stands, a group of disciples from the law enforcement team cheered loudly. Get rid of that ignorant brat! Kill him in seconds! Finish him in 1 move! The disciples from the law enforcement team could not stop laughing. The other disciples could not help but sigh. Sigh, although he is a new dark horse, compared to the veteran genius disciples, there is still a big gap. Yes, which of the geniuses on the ranking list does not have a trump card? I'm afraid Lin Xian will lose this time. Is this what you're counting on? Lin Xian asked calmly. He did not show any signs of irritation when his attack failed. The attack just now was just a warm-up. He did not use much strength. You keep showing off. I'll make you kneel and beg for mercy later. Hua Yangping did not expect Lin Xian to be so calm. He was instantly enraged. To deal with you, 3 moves are enough. Lin Xian clenched the big sword in his hand again. I've already used 1 move. Now there are 2 more. Lin Xian's voice was not loud, but it clearly spread throughout the martial arts practice field. What? Did I hear wrongly? He wants to defeat Captain Hua in 3 moves? Asterisk 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 asterisk. He can't even break through his defense, and he wants to win in 3 moves? The disciples from the law enforcement team cursed. Even some of the elite disciples looked suspicious. To be honest, they did not think highly of Lin Xian. Of course, they did not believe that he could win in 3 moves. Even Jiang Yulong sneered. His eyes were full of disdain. Idiot! Shangguan Luyun suddenly whispered. His voice was so low that only Jiang Yulong, Duan Fei, and other genius disciples heard it. Xingqianer's beautiful eyes were full of surprise. She did not expect that the always silent Shangguan would curse. Even Duan Fei could not help but shake his head. He did not know who Shangguan was cursing. In the arena, Lin Xian made another move. The dark red big sword was rusty, but under the rust, there was a strange red light surging. Lin Xian combined the thunderclap swordsmanship and the lonely mountain swordsmanship, using the multiple forces of the thunderclap swordsmanship to activate the lonely mountain swordsmanship. Boom! Lin Xian's sword hit the black sword formation, bursting out a string of blazing sparks. His posture was exactly the same as before. Haha, don't waste your strength. Hua Yanping wanted to laugh loudly, but before he could finish his words, the black sword formation changed. With a cracking sound, visible cracks appeared on the sword chi emitted by the black sword array. Then, the cracks spread out like a spider web. How is it possible? How can he break it? Hua Yanping's face changed greatly. Does he have the strength of the 4 heroes? He hurriedly mobilized the spiritual power in his body to control the sword formation, wanting to quickly repair the cracks. However, before he could do anything, the 3rd sword slashed again. Lonely Mountain as one. This blow directly shattered the black sword curtain. Layers of hidden forces surged like waves, each stronger than the last. Hua Yanping was submerged in the mountain-like power, and had no power to resist. The next moment he flew out. Chapter 55. Hua Yanping was like a kite with a broken string. His body kept spurting out blood before he finally landed heavily on the ground. The scene was terrifyingly quiet for a moment. Lin Xian really won the match in 3 moves. This made everyone feel like they were dreaming. One must know that he was the number 1 person under the 4 heroes, yet he was defeated in 3 moves. Could it be that Lin Xian already has the strength of the 4 heroes? This was everyone's question. Hua Yanping was too careless. Otherwise, the battle wouldn't have ended so quickly. Duan Fei whispered. Jiang Yulong's face was terrifyingly dark. He had just mocked Lin Xian, but the result of the match gave him a heavy slap. Recalling Shangguan Luyuan's words of idiot not long ago, Jiang Yulong had the urge to kill. Of course, he knew that Hua Yanping was careless and underestimated his opponent. But so what if he knew? I didn't expect a trash to enter the top 4. However, your path ends here. No matter who you face, you will lose miserably. Jiang Yulong said hatefully. I really hope you can meet me. Lin Xian once again exceeded everyone's expectations and successfully entered the top 4. Next would be the semifinals. Among the top 4, other than Lin Xian, the dark horse, the other 3 were all young geniuses who had been famous for a long time. Every one of them was so dazzling. Duan Fei with his unparalleled Qigong movement technique, Jiang Yulong with his condensed elemental spiritual energy, and the unfathomable Shangguan Luyuan, who would obtain first place. After resting for 2 hours, the square-faced referee announced the start of the semifinals. The first match, Shangguan Luyuan vs. Duan Fei. Everyone suddenly became excited. They didn't expect to see the battle between the 2 strongest people in the first match. Shangguan Luyun was ranked first in the outer sect while Duan Fei was ranked second. His ranking was above Jiang Yulong. The semifinals were the two strongest people. Wouldn't the finals be one of them fighting with Jiang Yulong for first place? Everyone automatically ignored Lin Xian. They knew that Lin Xian was powerful, but in front of the three geniuses, no one was optimistic about him. Looking at the two people on the stage, Jiang Yulong's mouth curled into a cold smile. Very good, I will personally deal with that trash. On the arena, the two were 30 meters apart. Shangguan Luyun was dressed in black and stood upright. He had withdrawn all his aura into his body. He looked at Duan Fei opposite him. His finger flicked the ring on his left index finger, and a purple spear appeared in his hand. With a spear in hand, Shangguan Luyun's imposing manner completely erupted. The spiritual energy in his entire body pulsed. One man and one spear, it was as if they were going to tear the sky apart. Duan Fei focused his attention. Facing the number one person in the outer sect, he had no choice but to use his full strength. With a shake of the sword in his hand, Duan Fei's body turned into a beam of light and rushed over. His speed was very fast, even faster than when he was competing with Xingqianer. He left a series of afterimages in the air. The silver sword light condensed into a thin line and almost disappeared. Lin Xian frowned slightly. He had no choice but to concentrate fully to see Duan Fei's movements. In the distance, Jiang Yulong's expression also changed slightly. It seemed that Duan Fei's speed had surprised him once again. However, Shangguan Luyun, who was in the arena, was as still as a mountain. He held the purple spear in his hand very steadily. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and retreated 30 feet, instantly disappearing from his original spot. At the place where he was originally standing, several sword lights appeared out of thin air, turning the ground into fragments. Chi. Duan Fei's body appeared in front of Shangguan Luyun. The sword Chi pierced out like a waterfall, whistling through the air. His sword was like an antelope hanging its horn, untraceable. Even the sound was very soft, making it impossible to guard against. Facing such a terrifying swordsman, Shangguan Luyun finally attacked with his spear. It was a simple stab without any fancy moves, but it was like a peerless overlord attacking with all his might. At that moment, everything in the world seemed to have disappeared, leaving only the spear. The spear was like a dragon. The purple spear seemed to have turned into a purple dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. It roared and dispersed all the strange and sharp sword lights. Furthermore, its imposing manner did not diminish as it pounced towards Duan Fei. Ka ka ka! There was a series of explosive sounds in the air. The vast spiritual energy rushed in front of Duan Fei and pierced through him. Ah! On the spectator stands, all the disciples exclaimed. Was it going to end like this? As if in response, the Duan Fei that was stabbed gradually faded and dissipated. Finally, he disappeared without a trace. Afterimage, Lin Xian muttered. Using his own speed and combining it with his spiritual energy, he left an afterimage on the spot while his real body was hidden. It's indeed a good method. His gaze was like lightning as he quickly scanned the stage and finally found Duan Fei's figure. This guy is so fast! Lin Xian exclaimed. Shangguan Luyun naturally also discovered Duan Fei's figure. His spear trembled and pierced out again. Pooh! Every time Shangguan Luyun attacked with his spear, it would pierce through a Duan Fei. However, they were all afterimages. Duan Fei's afterimages were pierced one by one and disappeared. In the end, the entire stage was filled with Duan Fei's figure and Shangguan Luyun's spear. The disciples in the spectator stands watched nervously, afraid that they would miss any detail. This terrifying speed had already exceeded their imagination. On the golden spectator stands, a few elders laughed out loud. These little fellows are really not bad. Their potential is limitless. On the stage, Shangguan Luyun stood with his spear like a demon god. His gaze quickly swept across his surroundings. Suddenly, he twisted his body and the purple spear turned into a cold light as it pierced to the right behind him. Clang clang! A figure was shaken out as Duan Fei retreated in a sorry state. There was a trace of surprise on his face. "The game is over," Shangguan Luyan said in a deep voice. Suddenly, an even more intense aura erupted from the two of them. The rich spiritual energy was like two balls of dancing flames that constantly flickered. Ding ding ding! Duan Fei's sword was like a rainbow as countless sword beams scattered out. They were like millions of white feathers that covered the entire space. However, Shangguan Luyan's rich purple spiritual energy condensed on the spear as if it had formed an invisible vortex that sucked in all the white feathers. "Revolving spear style!" Shangguan Luyan shouted in a low voice. On the purple spear tip, the rich spiritual energy crazily rotated. Together with the sharp spear tip, it constantly compressed the surrounding air. The surrounding air seemed to be deformed from the pressure. Duan Fei suddenly felt as if his body had sunk into mud. His complacent speed had also decreased. "What is this?" He was alarmed and had no choice but to use all his strength to break through. On the spectator stands, when the disciples saw Shangguan Luyan's spear deflect all the sword beams, they immediately exclaimed, "This spear technique!" Lin Xian frowned. "This child is astonishing!" On the golden spectator stands, Elderly once again exclaimed in admiration. "To be able to use spiritual energy to such an extent and even produce the power of a vortex, this child's talent is rarely seen in 100 years. Chapter 56. Duan Fei's phantom-like movement technique lost its effect and he was immediately at a disadvantage. The two of them engaged in close combat as purple beams soared into the sky as sword beams crisscrossed. However, Duan Fei had lost his speed. He was like a bird in the sky that had lost its wings. It was difficult for him to use his full strength. Wind-stirring sword! Duan Fei stabbed out with his sword as his muddy body became more agile. On the blade of the sword, the figure of a white condor appeared. Sword force! It's sword force again! As expected of one of the outer sect's 4 heroes. Other than his insane speed, he has also comprehended sword force. Shangguan Luyan's eyes shimmered as the spear in his hand transformed into a flood dragon that pounced at the white condor. Immediately, the entire stage emitted an intense collision sound. Boom! After a shocking tremor, the two of them separated once again. A cross-shaped crack appeared where they were originally standing. It nearly split the entire stage into 4. Duan Fei retreated more than 10 steps before stabilizing his body. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Shangguan Luyan in horror. He saw Shangguan Luyan standing with his spear in hand. Divine flames danced on his body, and his aura did not show any signs of disorder. "I admit defeat!" Duan Fei put away his sword. His identity had been restrained, so it was futile to continue fighting. He might as well conserve his strength to prepare for the 3rd stage. Shangguan Luyan put away his purple spear and cupped his fists at Duan Fei before striding down the stage. "Shangguan Luyan wins!" The referee's voice sounded. "Shangguan Luyan is too powerful. Even Duan Fei's insane speed has been restrained. Furthermore, he doesn't seem to have used his full strength. I'm afraid the first place this time will be Shangguan." Everyone was discussing Shangguan Luyan, while Lin Xian closed his eyes. He was comprehending the movement technique that Duan Fei had used and Shangguan Luyan's unique vortex spear technique. According to Lord Alcohol, Shangguan Luyan's vortex spear technique was actually an application of spiritual energy. Every wisp of spiritual energy was precisely controlled and then circulated at high speeds, forming something like a vortex. This technique was similar to Lin Xian's thunderous sword technique. It was precisely controlling one's strength, allowing it to be used to its greatest effect. Second match of the semifinals, Lin Xian vs. Jiang Yulong. 30 minutes later, the referee's voice sounded again. The winner of this match would be the final battle with Shangguan Luyan. "Humph, it's finally my turn. Lin Xian, just you wait!" With a leap, Jiang Yulong gracefully landed on the arena. He crossed his arms and looked very relaxed. From Jiang Yulong's, he doesn't seem to take Lin Xian's eyes. Of course. He has the confidence to challenge Shangguan Luyan. How can he lose here? Amidst the crowd, the disciples of the Divine Might group let out thunderous cheers, as though Jiang Yulong had already become the champion. Wear lenses? Why hasn't? Could it be that he's afraid? Under normal circumstances, both parties should be standing on the stage by now. However, Lin Xian was nowhere to be seen. Humph, the result is the same. But it's the first time I've seen such a cowardly piece of trash. F***ck, look at Lin Xian. What is he doing? Is he resting with his eyes closed? Has he fallen asleep? Someone noticed that Lin Xian was in the lounge with his eyes closed. He didn't look like he wanted to go on stage. F***ck, what's with the act? Just say it if you don't dare. Lin Xian? Yin Qingyi called out softly. Hey, you bastard, don't tell me you're really scared? Tang Yu muttered softly. Lin Xian opened his eyes and rubbed his head helplessly. He was still recalling the battle just now. He had basically figured it out. He just needed to put it into practice. If anyone knew Lin Xian's thoughts, their jaws would drop. How heaven-defying was his talent to be able to understand the essence of someone else's martial arts just by looking at it once. He stood up and walked slowly to the stage, facing Jiang Yulong. You still dare to come up? Jiang Yulong said disdainfully. I think it's better for you to stay down there. At least a coward can still live. You talk too much, Lin Xian said calmly. Humph, keep pretending. You really think you can challenge me after defeating Hua Yangking? Let me tell you, you're still far from being my match. I don't know who gave you that confidence, but from now on, your confidence will be useless in front of me. Lin Xian pulled out his dark red great sword with a flip of his hand. Do you want me to give you 3 moves? Jiang Yulong was very arrogant. Otherwise, you'll lose in 1 move. How boring would that be? You'll let me have 3 moves? Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. Thank you. Then, his body disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Jiang Yulong. He covered the distance of 10 feet in the blink of an eye. That speed was too terrifying. Before the crowd could react, Lin Xian slashed down with his red flaming sword like red lightning. It was extremely fast. The red sword was like a huge mountain. It was extremely heavy and pressed down on Jiang Yulong. Jiang Yulong could not dodge that speed and could only block it with his sword. Clang! The 2 swords clashed and a metallic sound rang out. Didn't you say you'd give me 3 moves? Lin Xian sneered. I've cancelled the benefits. Now I want you dead. Jiang Yulong swung his sword away from Lin Xian's sword. His face was extremely ferocious. He had almost suffered a loss just now. I'll let you know what a real genius is. Jiang Yulong's sword was suddenly covered with a layer of red flames. It was as dazzling as the sun. After the flame-like spiritual energy appeared, the temperature in the air suddenly rose. Black spots appeared on the ground. That was the result of being roasted by the high temperature. In front of my fire attribute spiritual energy, you're no different from an ant. Jiang Yulong swung his sword. Layers of heat waves spread out, almost melting the air. Sword of the Flame Dragon! Jiang Yulong stabbed out. The red spiritual energy turned into a fire dragon and roared. In the blink of an eye, the fire dragon was in front of Lin Xian and was about to swallow him. Lin Xian activated the secret art of long life. The spiritual energy in his body quickly revolved. Ever since he absorbed the golden lightning, his spiritual energy had turned a light gold. A faint golden light covered his body as if he was wearing a layer of golden armor. This was the first time Lin Xian had used spiritual energy on the stage. Looking at the golden light on Lin Xian's body, someone exclaimed, 5th level meridian condensing stage, is there a mistake? What, 5th level meridian condensing stage, you didn't see wrong. A 5th level meridian condensing stage defeated Huayan Ping? That's too monstrous! Lin Xian's current aura was indeed that of a 5th level meridian condensing stage. However, his strength far surpassed the average 6th level meridian condensing stage disciple. Is he going to take this sword head on? The disciples realized that Lin Xian had no intention of dodging. Is he crazy? That's elemental spiritual energy. How can his 5th level meridian condensing stage spiritual energy take it head on? That scene caused everyone to be confused. Even Shanghuan Liuyun's gaze flickered and a trace of doubt appeared in his eyes. Chapter 57. Lin Xian's actions surprised everyone. In their opinion, he was courting death. Die for me! Jiang Yulong roared. The moment the fire dragon touched Lin Xian, the sword in Lin Xian's hand turned into a golden lightning and went against the flow. A shocking scene appeared. The incomparably malevolent fire dragon was split into 2 from its forehead. With a wail, the fire dragon turned back into a burning flame and scattered on the ground. This? The disciples in the stands were stunned. What did Lin Xian do? He actually split the fire dragon condensed from the fire attribute's spiritual power? God, what did I just see? Strike me to death! Not only did the ordinary disciples not believe it, but even the elite disciples were also stunned. For the first time, Xin Qian's beautiful face showed a surprised expression. Even Shanghuan Liuyun was no longer calm. His purple eyes stared at Lin Xian without blinking. How did you do it? This is impossible! The most shocked person was of course Jiang Yulong. No one knew the power of this move better than him. He originally wanted to rely on this move to defeat Lin Xian, but he did not expect it to be broken so easily. Is my fire attribute's spiritual power not perfect? Jiang Yulong was suspicious. No one thought about the attribute's spiritual power because it was too difficult to find. Unless there was a high-level attribute cultivation method or martial arts, it was almost impossible to find in the outer sect. In addition, Lin Xian did not fully mobilize the spiritual power in his body. Although the golden spiritual power looked special, it did not show the characteristics of the thunder attribute. Therefore, no one thought that Lin Xian had mastered the attribute's spiritual power. Jiang Yulong's face was frighteningly dark. He could not accept this fact. Only by ruthlessly defeating Lin Xian could he relieve the hatred in his heart. Raise the fire and burn the sky! Jiang Yulong urged the spiritual power in his body to the extreme. His body was surrounded by blazing flames as he rushed toward Lin Xian. The flaming sword was quickly waved, forming a sea of fire. Ding 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 ding! Lin Xian also met Jiang Yulong's attack with his giant sword. The dark red sword was covered with a golden radiance. Every strike of the sword pierced through the sea of fire and collided with the tip of Jiang Yulong's sword. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had swung their swords dozens of times. Every sword strike was like a needle against an awn, colliding and canceling each other out, causing the disciples below to gasp in amazement. Such fast swordsmanship, such precise control. Their swordsmanship had long surpassed the realm of perfection. Every strike seemed to carry an indescribable power. However, they controlled it very well and did not overflow the arena. Blazing diffraction sword! Jiang Yulong's swordsmanship suddenly changed. Several sword shadows flew out from his body and pierced toward Lin Xian from different directions. The angles were so tricky that it was impossible to guard against them. Thunderous sword technique! Lin Xian swung his sword continuously, each strike as fast as lightning, accurately shattering all the sword lights. The sword lights fell to the ground and formed small fire snakes about an inch long. They quickly slithered around and blocked off all of Lin Xian's escape routes. Startling snake explosion! Dozens of small fire snakes suddenly exploded. The terrifying energy instantly blasted a deep pit in the ground. Lin Xian was completely submerged in the violent explosion. Shadow step! A black figure escaped from the explosion in an instant. The golden spiritual energy shield on his body was deformed in many places. There was a fist-sized hole on his back. However, it was fortunate that he escaped. Shadow pursuit! Lin Xian did not stop. Instead, he rushed toward Jiang Yulong with his sword. This young man gave him a very dangerous feeling. He had to take the initiative to meet the attack and end the battle quickly. Otherwise, the consequences might be unexpected. His thunderclap swordsmanship had already reached the second level of perfection, so he could perform it as he wished. He stuck close to Jiang Yulong, and the long sword in his hand stabbed, swept, and lifted. All the basic sword moves had become deadly moves in his hands. The more Jiang Yulong fought, the more shocked he became. He was almost being suppressed by Lin Xian. Every strike of the red sword was as heavy as a mountain, but it was as fast as lightning. He had no choice but to use all his strength to deal with it. Moreover, every time his sword was about to stab Lin Xian, it would always be a little short. All of his moves would be dodged by Lin Xian. He knew that this footwork was practiced to an extremely profound level. In addition to perfect control, he could perform it as he wished. Even Duan Fei, who was below the stage, was shocked when he saw Lin Xian's footwork. Although Lin Xian was still inferior to him in terms of speed, Lin Xian was almost on par with him in terms of exquisite positioning and precise control of distance. Although it is a mid-grade yellow-ranked martial art footwork, the effect is better than a high-grade yellow-ranked martial art. It seems that we have underestimated him, Shangguan Luoyun said in a deep voice from the side. Duan Fei glanced at Shangguan Luoyun and said indifferently, "I'm afraid there will be more surprises. I saw him 3 months ago when he used a sword technique. If he uses it now, I'm afraid Jiang Yulong will immediately lose the match." "What sword technique is so powerful?" Xin Qian'er asked curiously. Even Shangguan Luoyun was curious. "I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know how to use it. I believe there will be a result soon." Duan Fei's voice was a little gloomy. He recalled the heavenly meteor. At that time, Lin Xian was still a sword slave participating in the outer sect assessment. Who would have thought that 3 months later, he would be able to compete with a genius like the 4 heroes of the outer sect? Heavenly meteor. I wonder if I can dodge it? Duan Fei was very curious. Although his movement technique was extremely fast, he wasn't 100% confident. In the arena, Jiang Yulong was irritated by Lin Xian's close-range attacks. He roared, and the aura on his body suddenly more than doubled. Fiery fury! With a roar, the fiery red spirit power on Jiang Yulong's body suddenly spread out like a wave of fire, burning everything around him. The golden spirit power on Lin Xian's body turned into a golden battle saber, splitting the sea of fire in half. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of moves had passed. The two of them fiercely clashed and separated again, facing each other from a distance. Huff! Lin Xian slowly exhaled. The battle just now could be said to be evenly matched. He didn't use his full strength, and presumably, his opponent was the same. Sure enough, after a few breaths, Jiang Yulong, who was a few feet away, seemed to have made a decision. That cold gaze made Lin Xian's heart tremble. I didn't expect you to grow to this extent. Jiang Yulong's heart was filled with hatred. If he had known earlier, he would have killed Lin Xian outside the Devil Abyss. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. He could only helplessly accept this fact. But if you think you can defeat me like this, then you're too naive. Jiang Yulong's voice suddenly became very urgent. This was originally prepared for Shangguan Luoyun. I didn't expect to use it on you. You should be proud of yourself for being able to die under this move. Chapter 58. You should be proud to die under this move, Jiang Yulong said coldly. He placed the long sword horizontally in front of his chest and bent his left hand in the air. His originally normal palm suddenly became fiery red. He gently brushed the blade of the sword. Suddenly, the entire long sword seemed to come alive and became incomparably red. This set of movements was very slow. After he finished, his entire face was abnormally pale. The long sword was as red as blood and emitted a throbbing that made people's hearts tremble. The terrifying temperature was twice as high as before, and the surrounding space was blurred. Drip! Jiang Yulong gently waved the long sword. The red flame was like liquid. A few drops fell on the ground and immediately burned through the ground. Moreover, the fire quickly spread in all directions. A drop of red liquid the size of a water droplet actually burned the bluestone slabs within a radius of a few feet. Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He felt a fatal danger from the long sword. Clenching the dark red sword in his hand, Lin Xian prepared to use all of his strength to fight. Don't waste your energy. Even a 7th level Meridian Spiritual Knight wouldn't be able to block this move. Jiang Yulong's voice was a little tired, but there was a trace of excitement in it. Although I paid a big price, it was worth it to get rid of you. Mysterious fire sword! A deep voice sounded. The bright red long sword carried a dazzling red light and formed a sword energy that was 3 feet long. Just the aftermath of the sword energy caused the ground to be shaved off a foot. The sword energy was as dazzling as the sun. It was so bright that the audience couldn't open their eyes. Lin Xian felt the threat of this sword. He crazily urged his spiritual power. The golden spiritual power attached to the sword edge and small electric arcs constantly flowed. Lin Xian's body was also covered with golden lightning. He was like the thunder god. The thunderbolt sword in his hand pierced out like lightning. Thunder god's fury! On the stage, a golden light flashed, and then there was a shocking explosion. More than half of the stage was covered by an energy shield, and it quickly spread out. Countless stones flew up. The airflow quickly stirred and formed a gust of wind. The broken stones flew in all directions. Many of them flew towards the stands. The disciples in the front row retreated one after another. The broken stones hit the stone steps, leaving holes in them. The disciples in the front row had lingering fears and did not dare to move forward. F***CK, just the aftershock alone is so powerful. Are the two of them still human? I'm afraid that even the inner sect disciples are nothing more than this, right? Why do I feel that they have already surpassed most of the inner court disciples? What a freak! These disciples discussed animatedly, their tone full of envy. I wonder what's the situation inside? But this Lin Xian is really surprising. Yeah, no matter what the result is, Lin Xian is the true dark horse of this selection competition. Do you think Lin Xian has a chance of turning the tables? I'm really looking forward to it. Above the arena, a cloud of dust curled up, making it impossible for the crowd to see what was happening. They could only guess below. Duan Fei stared at the arena and frowned slightly. He turned to look at Shangguan Luyun and asked, "What do you think?" Lin Xian's final shroud of golden lightning seemed to be lightning attribute spiritual energy, so the outcome is hard to predict. Shangguan Luyun said in a deep voice. Lightning attribute? Duan Fei muttered. It's really a rare spiritual energy attribute, but why didn't he use that heavenly meteor? Not only were the disciples guessing, even the elders on the golden stands were so shocked that they pulled their beards. Their eyes were wide open. It's actually lightning attribute. Who is this youth? He's so monstrous! Elderly exclaimed. It was already very rare for outer sect disciples to cultivate an attribute, but now the most violent lightning attribute had appeared. How could he not be surprised? Hee, this little fellow is really surprising. Elder Fang chuckled as he stroked his beard. Old Fang, you know him? A group of old men looked at Elder Fang. On the stage, the dust finally dispersed, and 2 figures appeared. Look, the results are coming out. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. The referee in charge of the competition waved his sleeves, forming a gust of wind that blew away the remaining dust. Finally, the 2 figures appeared clearly in front of the crowd. The 2 youths, one on the left and one on the right, stood upright. The doctor on the left was dressed in white, his eyes full of arrogance. It was Jiang Yulong. On the right, Lin Xian was dressed in black, his delicate face expressionless. Ha ha! Jiang Yulong suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. Oh no, did Jiang Yulong win? Seeing this, Tang Yu, Yin Qingyi, and the rest's faces changed. I didn't expect you to be able to withstand this move. Jiang Yulong's body suddenly leaned back, blood spurting out of his mouth as he fell straight down. Senior brother Jiang. The disciples of the Divine Might group ran up to the arena and hugged Jiang Yulong nervously. Their faces were full of panic. They did not believe that the outer sect pillar of the Divine Might group would lose, especially to a youth who had just made a name for himself. Carry him down. His life is not in danger, just some injuries. The referee's words put the disciples of the Divine Might group at ease. They glared fiercely at Lin Xian, then quickly carried Jiang Yulong down the arena. "Little guy, you're not bad," the square-faced, middle-aged referee suddenly said to Lin Xian. "You have the strength, and know your limits. The future of the Black Heaven sect depends on you disciples." Lin Xian respectfully bowed to the square-faced referee, then slowly walked down the arena. When he stabbed Jiang Yulong just now, a voice rang in his ears, telling Lin Xian that he only needed to win and not kill. That was why he withdrew 30% of his strength at the last moment. Otherwise, Jiang Yulong would have been dead. Lin Xian and Jiang Yulong were both young geniuses. The sect did not want to lose such disciples, so the square-faced referee warned them. When Lin Xian walked down from the stage, the entire martial arts arena was filled with his name. The ordinary disciples had already taken him as their idol and were cheering non-stop. Their voices were so loud that it shook the heavens. And Lin Xian's experience was spread among the disciples. 3 months ago, he participated in the Outer Sect assessment as a sword slave and successfully entered the Outer Sect of the Black Heaven sect. And 3 months later, he grew from a little sword slave to a genius disciple who could defeat the 4 heroes of the Outer Sect. This magnificent transformation deeply stimulated these youths. Lin Xian did not know that his deeds had gradually become a legend in the Outer Sect. Many disciples had set him as their goal and cultivated madly. After the celebration, the disciples were deeply excited. The finals had finally arrived. Who would be the final champion? "The finals will begin in an incense stick's time," the square-faced referee announced. Everyone knew that he was giving Lin Xian time to recover, so everyone waited patiently. Lin Xian sat cross-legged on the ground, the art of longevity in his body quickly circulating. The spiritual energy that he had consumed was quickly recovering, and even some of his wounds were quickly stitched up. The power of the art of longevity finally manifested at this moment. His originally exhausted body was quickly filled with vitality. Those wounds were also smoothed out, and Lin Xian's strength was rapidly recovering. After an incense stick's time, he opened his eyes. Chapter 59. As Lin Xian stood up, the atmosphere in the martial arts practice field became lively again. Shangguan Luyun versus Lin Xian. One was the recognized number 1 Outer Sect disciple, the other was a young genius who suddenly emerged as a new force. Who would be the final champion between the two? The two of them were more than 10 feet apart as they faced each other. Shangguan Luyun flicked his ring and a purple spear appeared in his hand. Suddenly his aura became completely different. From the original calm and reserved, it became unstoppable. The pulsating purple spirit energy seemed to pierce the heavens. Lin Xian held the dark red greatsword. He did not release any spirit energy, and just stood there calmly. However, no one doubted his strength until now. He was like a treasure sword. Once he was unsheathed, the wind and clouds would change. Everyone was amazed. "Lin Xian, you're worthy of me making a move," Shangguan Luyun said. "Between you and me, how about we decide the victor in 3 moves? 3 moves to decide the victor?" Hearing this, the people below were completely ignited. They did not need to think to know that these 3 moves were definitely killing moves. It seemed like Shangguan Luyun planned to end the battle quickly. 3 moves? That's exactly what I want. Lin Xian did not want to drag it on. As soon as his words fell, Shangguan Luyun on the opposite side suddenly shouted. The purple aura on his body suddenly exploded, revealing a shocking battle intent. It was like a purple divine spear that wanted to tear apart the heavens. Shangguan Luyun's aura continued to rise. The purple aura rolled like a demon king was born. What a terrifying aura! Duan Fei stared at Shangguan Luyun on the stage. His expression was uncertain. Whoosh! Feeling this shocking aura, Lin Xian no longer suppressed the power in his body. Pale golden spirit energy rushed out and instantly covered his entire body. Around him, the air suddenly became violent. Countless golden lightning arcs were faintly discernible as they constantly wandered around his body. Lightning! It's actually lightning! Lin Xian actually had elemental spirit energy. At this moment, all the disciples stood up in shock. Their eyes were filled with shock. On the stage, Lin Xian was like a thunder god descending to earth. His black hair danced in the wind, and his entire body was enveloped in golden arcs of electricity. Even his eyes were imprinted with a golden hue. No wonder he could defeat Jiang Yulong. It turns out that he also has elemental spiritual energy. Moreover, it's the most violent lightning energy. These disciples didn't know what had happened at the last moment of the last match, but when they saw Lin Xian's current situation, they all came to a realization. On the arena, the two of them were fighting. Purple and gold clashed against each other, constantly rubbing against each other in the air, producing crackling sounds. Boom! The two energies collided, forming circles of ripples that spread out in all directions. With the two of them as the center, the ground around them turned into powder. Even some of the stone steps in front of them were shattered. Soul-stirring 3 spears! First spear, vortex! Shangguan Luyan shouted. Endless purple spirit power poured into the spear, and the air trembled. The moment the spear was unleashed, the winds and clouds moved. It was as if a purple dragon had emerged from the sea. Facing this peerless spear, Lin Xian's expression turned solemn. This was the first time he felt a sense of danger. His body faintly trembled. It wasn't because of fear, but excitement. Yes, it was excitement. Lin Xian's eyes were as bright as the stars. A strong fighting intent burst out from his body. He was like a golden war king, holding a dark red greatsword. With the power of wind and thunder, he angrily faced the attack. Bang! The golden light flashed and fiercely collided with the purple spear, producing a thunder-like vibration. Those disciples with weaker cultivation felt as if their ears had gone deaf. They couldn't hear anything. On the purple spear, a purple vortex with endless suction force seemed to want to devour Lin Xian. This was the move that defeated Duanfei. Thunder movement! Lin Xian shouted in a low voice. The dark red greatsword suddenly overflowed with a scarlet light, resonating with the golden electric current on the sword body. Layers of dark energy surged towards Shangguan Luyan like waves, just in time to resist the suction force. Shangguan Luyan was shocked. He didn't expect that Lin Xian's seemingly ordinary sword would contain so many dark energies. It was like the divine thunder from the 9 heavens, constantly accumulating power. For the first time, his vortex spear art had lost its effect. Furthermore, the golden electric arc constantly seeped into his spirit energy, releasing the power of thunder and lightning, causing his body to feel a sense of numbness. Humph! Shangguan Luyan's spear trembled and forcefully interrupted the attack. Both of them kept retreating and looked at each other warily. In one move, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched. The disciples in the stands were excited. They would never forget that the spear just now defeated the second-place outer sect disciple, Duanfei. However, Lin Xian calmly received it. These two people have probably far surpassed the other outer sect disciples. Many elite disciples felt a sense of loss. Everyone could only see the general idea and didn't know what happened. However, Shangguan Luyan knew in his heart that he lost in the first move. If he didn't shake off Lin Xian's longsword in time, the golden electric arc would have penetrated his spirit energy defense. What is that golden arc of lightning? How can he control such terrifying lightning? Shangguan Luyan couldn't understand. This kind of lightning, even in the inner sect, no disciple could control it. However, it actually appeared in Lin Xian's hands. However, it was impossible for him to admit defeat like this. Shangguan Luyan was very confident in his spear art, especially the last 2 moves. Even if he was against a level 7 Meridian Spiritual Knight, he could still win. The second move, Purple Ray. The 8-foot-long spear had a purple light flowing on it. It was mysterious. This spear didn't care about the strange power, but the abnormal speed. Fast, it was extremely fast. That kind of speed made people unable to react. Even Duanfei, who was always proud of his speed. After seeing this spear, his pupils shrunk and his back was covered in cold sweat. He thought about it again and realized that he still couldn't dodge this spear. Lin Xian only felt the cold purple ray flash. Soon after, the long spear was like a dragon and instantly arrived in front of him. Speed? The corner of Lin Xian's mouth raised. This Shangguan Liuyun's moves were really similar to his. The first move was a strange use of power, and the second move was abnormal speed. Wrath of the Thunder God! Lin Xian's long sword turned into a red and gold light and clashed with the cold purple ray. Eh? He blocked it? Shangguan Liuyun's expression changed again. In terms of strength, he admitted that he lost by 1 level. However, in terms of speed, he had absolute confidence. Even Duan Fei wouldn't be able to dodge this spear, but Lin Xian actually blocked it. The spearhead of the purple long spear and the sword tip of the dark red great sword clashed. The two different powers devoured each other and then dissipated. This was definitely not a coincidence. Lin Xian also had abnormal speed. Thinking about this, Shangguan Liuyun's expression became abnormally serious for the first time. Chapter 60. Shangguan Liuyun's expression was extremely solemn as he did not win after 2 moves. There's still 1 more move. Lin Xian, if you can take this move, you will be this time's champion. Shangguan Liuyun's voice was cold. What else do you have? Come on out. Lin Xian changed his usual gentleness. His words were filled with a domineering aura. The third move, Bright Sun. The purple spear was raised high by Shangguan Liuyun. On the tip of the spear, a purple vortex rapidly rotated. A large amount of purple spirit energy surged towards the tip of the spear. Under the effect of the vortex, it formed a fist-sized energy ball that was constantly expanding. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. The energy ball on the purple spear tip made him feel flustered. The power of the third move was probably greater than the first 2 moves combined. Other than the heavenly meteor, Lin Xian had used all his other moves. Furthermore, he did not want to use the heavenly meteor to resist. After all, that was his life-saving move. I can only try the 3rd level of the thunderous sword technique. Lin Xian did not have much confidence in his heart. He did not have time to think carefully. Shangguan Liuyun had already condensed the purple energy ball and used the purple light to rush over. With that speed, Lin Xian's transient shadow step had no way of dodging. Frantically circulating the longevity secret, Lin Xian raised the spirit energy in his body to the limit. The red flame sword in his hand suffused a golden thunderbolt as it swept out. Boom! The dark red sword that was originally able to withstand Shangguan Liuyun's second move was retreating in front of the purple energy ball. Lin Xian's small face was illuminated purple, appearing somewhat powerless. Break for me! Shangguan Liuyun exerted his strength once again. The purple energy ball resisted the dark red sword and slowly moved towards Lin Xian. This was almost half of the spirit energy in Shangguan Liuyun's body. It was all compressed into the fist-sized energy ball. After this move, his battle strength would be greatly reduced. This was also the reason why he said that victory would be decided in 3 moves. Facing this unbelievably powerful energy ball, Lin Xian's entire body tensed up. It was as if an invisible mountain was pressing down on his body, making it difficult for him to breathe. It's over. Lin Xian is going to lose. Everyone saw the situation on the stage. Lin Xian's struggling figure was reflected in everyone's eyes. Indeed, Shangguan Liuyun is still better. Someone sighed. Am I going to lose? No. How can I lose here? If I can't even beat these people, how can I face my family? How can I face my family members who are even more freakish? Lin Xian's eyes were filled with unwillingness. He wanted power, more power. His eyes were filled with madness. Under the thunderclap sword technique, the strength of his muscles was constantly squeezing out the potential in his body. Bang! Is. End. In the golden stands, Elder Fawn's face froze. His eyes sparkled as he stared at Lin Xian. Originally, he thought that Lin Xian was going to lose. To be honest, Lin Xian's current results were already beyond his expectations. He did not expect the situation to change again. Not only Elder Fang, but even the ordinary disciples noticed the change in Lin Xian. Their already calm hearts were once again in suspense. In fact, the most surprised person was Shangguan Luyun. He could clearly feel Lin Xian's weakness. As long as he persevered, victory would be his. But he did not expect that at this critical moment, Lin Xian would break through. Yes, Lin Xian had broken through. He was originally at the peak of the 5th level of the meridian condensing stage, and was just a step away from breaking through. Now, in this environment, he had successfully broken through to the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage. In 3 months, he had broken through from the 3rd level of the meridian condensing stage to the 6th level. This speed had never happened before in the Black Heaven sect. Lin Xian's current strength could be said to have more than doubled compared to before. With the art of longevity, he was now able to compete with Shangguan Luyun. A tyrannical aura was emitted from his body. The purple energy ball that was about to fly to his body was now controlled by Lin Xian. It even had the power to resist. However, just as everyone thought that the two of them were about to enter a protracted battle, the fist-sized energy ball constantly deformed as if it was about to explode at any time. Sure enough, after a few breaths, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The entire arena was covered in purple light. This! On the golden grandstand, Elderly and the others stood up one after another. They paid close attention to the situation in the arena. Many ordinary disciples were also nervous and restless. Whoosh! A figure flew out from the arena and quickly landed on the open ground. It was the square-faced elder. He was carrying 2 people in his hands. They were Shangguan Luyun and Lin Xian. The purple energy ball had clearly broken away from Shangguan Luyun's control, causing the situation to go out of control. At the critical moment, the referee intervened and saved the 2 of them. The sect would not allow such genius disciples to perish. Shangguan Luyun was covered in blood and his face was pale. He had suffered serious injuries. Lin Xian, who was beside him, only had a pale face. If one looked carefully, they would realize that his skin was covered in a layer of black patterns. From afar, it looked like a black lotus. The square-faced referee thought that Lin Xian had a secret treasure on him, so he did not ask anything. However, one could still see the shock in his eyes. Chi! The black lotus patterns gradually faded before completely disappearing. Ever since Lin Xian could cultivate, this lotus had been very strange. As long as Lin Xian's life was in danger, it would come out to protect him. On the other hand, the mysterious sword did not move at all. Xiao Xuanzi, are you alright? In the Black Heaven sect, Lord Alcohol did not dare make a move casually or he would expose himself. When that happened, even Lin Xian would not be able to escape. I'm just a little injured. It's nothing serious, Lin Xian said weakly. After receiving Lin Xian's reply, Lord Alcohol nodded and did not say anything else. The scene was chaotic for a moment. Many disciples were discussing the scene from before. Some were excited, while others were worried. However, most of them wanted to know what the situation was. Was it a draw? You won. Shangguan Luyun propped himself up and said softly. Both he and Lin Xian had been affected. He was injured, but Lin Xian did not bleed a single drop of blood. This difference made him feel uncomfortable. When the square-faced referee heard Shangguan Luyun's words, he nodded. After giving the 2 of them a pill, he said in a deep voice, Winner, Lin Xian! Winner, Lin Xian! This voice echoed in the arena for a long time. Perhaps no one would have guessed that the champion would be Lin Xian. This delicate youth had broken the pattern of many years in the outer sect and successfully obtained the title of number 1 in the outer sect. At that moment, the way everyone looked at Lin Xian changed. They were filled with fear, envy, and admiration. Chapter 61. Early in the morning, the sun was shining brightly. 3 days had passed since the second stage of the competition. In these 3 days, Lin Xian had already recuperated from his injuries and stabilized his realm at the 6th stage of the meridian condensation realm. In these 3 days, many people came to see him, but he rejected them all with the excuse of recuperating. He knew the purpose of these disciples. They wanted to build a relationship with him and obtain benefits. During this period, the black lotus in his body appeared once again, shocking both him and Lord Alcohol. Lin Xian had also asked Lord Alcohol about the origins of the black lotus. This time, Lord Alcohol didn't beat around the bush and directly said that he didn't know. Lin Xian repeatedly asked. Lord Alcohol muttered a few words, and he vaguely heard something about not being in the same reincarnation cycle. However, Lord Alcohol planned to take action once. He took out the black lotus and let Lin Xian study it carefully. In my current state, I can only take action once. You have to grasp the opportunity well, Lord Alcohol said. Okay. Lin Xian nodded solemnly. He closed his eyes and pondered. He looked into his body and carefully scanned every inch. Not long after, the mysterious sword in his body suddenly trembled. A tiny sword wave spread out like a wave. Following that, a black object appeared at Lin Xian's 7th spirit meridian. It gradually transformed into a black lotus that was extremely beautiful. Lin Xian focused his gaze. The black lotus suddenly wrapped around the mysterious sword with a whoosh. It kept wrapping around it, wanting to cover the entire sword. The next moment, in the independent space inside the mysterious sword, a black lotus suddenly appeared on the desolate ground. It kept growing as though it wanted to pierce through this small world. Lord Alcohol's expression was solemn. He condensed a wisp of sword energy and attacked the black lotus, but to no avail. He sighed helplessly. There was nothing he could do. He was just too weak now. If not for the mysterious sword, he would have died long ago. Furthermore, the black lotus was abnormally mysterious. It had existed in an era before him, so it was normal that he couldn't do anything about it. The black lotus grew larger and larger, about to occupy the entire space. At this moment, the withered tree suddenly emitted a faint light that swept towards the black lotus. The lotus flower seemed to have encountered something frightening. It swayed its leaves and branches, continuously shrinking, and quickly left the mysterious little sword. Lin Xian sensed that the black lotus had transformed back into a black object. It was being chased by a beam of divine light. It kept running until it was finally enveloped by the beam of divine light. Lord Alcohol's hands kept changing seals as he controlled the divine light, slowly melting the black object inside. Then, he absorbed the golden lightning in Lin Xian's body and fused it with the divine light. Finally, the divine light returned to the small sword. Lord Alcohol's voice sounded from inside. I've planted a sword intent seed in your body. It will become stronger as you grow. As long as you don't perish, you will one day become an expert in the world. Sword intent, seed, Lin Xian murmured. He knew that above the sword force, there was something called sword intent. However, it was extremely ethereal and required extremely strong comprehension and luck. Ordinary people were unable to grasp it at all. It seemed to only exist in legends. But now, Lord Alcohol was telling him that he had a sword intent seed in his body. This was the first time he had heard that sword intent could be planted with a seed. Once again, he felt a strong sense of curiosity towards the mysterious little sword and Lord Alcohol in his body. With the sword intent seed, my strength will probably increase greatly. Lin Xian was excited. He closed his eyes and tried to communicate with the mysterious little sword in his body. This time, the mysterious little sword finally reacted. Lin Xian could sense a weak golden dot of light inside the mysterious little sword. Although it was weak, it had a terrifying aura. Is this my seed of sword intent? Lin Xian looked at it carefully, and realized that the golden spot of light also had a lightning attribute. This sword intent seed was formed by the lightning in your body. You can call it lightning sword intent. Lord Alcohol's voice was somewhat weak. I can only help you with this. In the future you will have to find the sword intent seed yourself. Can I still plant it? Lin Xian was puzzled. Yes, you will know in the future. Lord Alcohol smiled mysteriously. All right, I'm going to sleep for a period of time. Be careful. Lord Alcohol's voice was very weak. He had expended too much energy just now. Remember to help me find soul recovery medicine. Otherwise, I really won't be able to wake up, Lord Alcohol exhorted. Don't worry, Uncle. I will help you find it, Lin Xian said solemnly. After Lord Alcohol fell into a deep sleep, Lin Xian began studying the sword intent seed. He realized that ever since the golden sword intent seed was planted, he suddenly understood a lot more about lightning. He didn't need to deliberately control the lightning in his body. With just a thought, he could achieve the situation he wanted. I wonder how my lightning eclipse sword art is doing? Lin Xian couldn't wait to try it out. To his surprise, he easily executed the third level of the lightning eclipse sword art. The sword intent seed is so magical. Lin Xian felt that the lightning eclipse sword art wasn't difficult for him at all. He could even easily execute the third level of lightning slash. At this point, he had completely grasped the lightning eclipse sword art. This outcome made Lin Xian extremely happy. He decided to nurture the sword intent seed with all his might. With that, he sat cross-legged and circulated the spiritual energy in his body to nourish the seed. The golden sword intent seed was like a living body as it constantly absorbed the lightning attribute in the spiritual energy. At the same time, it also transmitted a very magical concept. Above the 9 heavens, a golden sea of lightning constantly churned. Every bolt of lightning was thicker than a person. They tore through the void in an extremely violent manner. Lin Xian felt as though he was in this sea of lightning as he felt the wrath of the lightning. However, this concept couldn't last for long. It could only last for a few seconds. However, Lin Xian believed that as the sword intent seed grew, he would once again feel that concept. If he were to fight Shangguan Luyun now, he was confident that he could defeat him in 3 moves. This was the advantage the sword intent seed gave him. This seed of sword intent will become my greatest trump card. Lin Xian couldn't wait to pass the 3rd stage. Chapter 62. In the following days, Lin Xian studied the sword intent seed while waiting for the 3rd test. A few days later, someone from the inner sect informed Lin Xian to receive the reward for the 2nd test. The person who came was Elder Fang's doorman. He led Lin Xian to Elder Fang's small courtyard and then went to inform Elder Fang. In the quiet courtyard, other than Lin Xian, there were 2 other people. They were Shangguan Luyun and Duan Fei. They were 2nd and 3rd place, so they naturally had rewards. Lin Xian greeted the 2 of them and then stood to the side, waiting for Elder Fang. A moment later, Elder Fang, who was dressed in a Taoist robe, walked out with a smile. I will be responsible for the rewards for the 3 of you. According to the rules, the 1st place will be rewarded with a pure spirit pill, a mid-profound rank martial art, and a human rank artifact. The 2nd place will be rewarded with a low profound rank martial art and a small yellow pill. The 3rd place will be rewarded with a profound rank martial art. Elder Fang said unhurriedly. Lin Xian, Shangguan Luyun, the 2 of you are here to receive your pills. Lin Xian and Shangguan Luyun walked forward and took the 2 white porcelain bottles. Then, they respectfully retreated. Lin Xian opened the bottle and found a Longan-sized pill inside. There was a faint green color flowing on top of it. The medicinal fragrance made people feel refreshed. This pill can actually raise one's cultivation by a small realm. It's really abnormal. Lin Xian carefully put it away and waited for what would happen next. Elder Fan saw that Lin Xian could remain calm under the temptation of a grade 3 pill. His eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He took out another item and threw it to Lin Xian. This is the human rank artifact rewarded by the sect, a storage ring. Lin Xian took the ring and put it on happily. With this, he would have a lot of things to carry. He immediately used his divine sense to touch the storage ring and put the pure spirit pill inside. All right, let's go to the martial skills pavilion. Elder Fang waved his hand and covered the 3 of them. Then, he flew away like a breeze. The three of them only felt a hazy fog wrap around their bodies. Then, their bodies left the ground and flew quickly. They couldn't see what was happening outside, but based on their senses, they were flying upwards. Not long after, Lin Xian and the other two stood on the ground again. The three of them circulated their spiritual energy and immediately woke up. "Follow me closely. Don't get lost," Elder Fang instructed. Then, he walked in a certain direction. The three of them hurriedly followed behind, afraid that they would lose him. However, the three of them looked around curiously, their faces filled with curiosity. The path made of bluestone slabs was winding, leading into the distance. On both sides of the path, there were many flowers and trees. In the distance, there were a few grand palaces. They were covered by clouds and mist, making them seem unreal. During this time, they also encountered some disciples. These people all looked hurried, and their auras were abnormally powerful. Lin Xian and the other two could not compare to them. "Is this the inner sect?" Lin Xian whispered. "Yes, the inner sect and outer sect are on two different mountains. Usually, they don't move around. Ordinary outer sect disciples don't know about the inner sect's situation, and inner sect disciples don't return to the outer sect," Duanfei said. Shangguan Luyun took a deep breath and exhaled after a while. "The spiritual energy here is much richer than the outer sect. Cultivating here will probably be twice as fast as cultivating in the outer sect." The three of them discussed in whispers. They were filled with yearning for the inner sect. Lin Xian thought about how he would be able to cultivate here soon and immediately felt excited. If there were no accidents, he would soon become an inner sect disciple. His next goal would be to become a core disciple. Only then would he be qualified to return to his family. The further in they went, the fewer trees on both sides. Instead, there were some buildings and terraces. Furthermore, there were more and more people. Many inner sect disciples looked at the three of them with interest. Elder Fang led the three of them through the buildings and houses. Finally, they stopped in front of a building. Lin Xian looked up. In front of him was an octagonal pavilion. There were 3 floors, and each floor was 50 to 60 feet tall. Above the main entrance of the first floor, there was a black plaque. On it there were 3 large golden words. "Martial Skills Pavilion." These 3 words were written forcefully and deeply, and they emanated a grand aura that caused others to feel awestruck just by looking at them. "Old Mo, an old friend is here to see you!" Elder Fang laughed. Whoosh! As Elder Fang's words fell, Lin Xian and the other 2 felt a blur in front of them. When they blinked again, they found a hunchbacked old man in gray standing in front of them. The 3 of them were shocked. They did not see where the hunchbacked old man came from. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. Moreover, the hunchbacked old man looked like an ordinary person. There was nothing special about him. "Alchemy maniac Fang, you're still willing to come out of your alchemy room?" The hunchbacked old man scolded with a smile. "Why did you bring 3 little babies?" "Old Mo, I'm here on official business. These 3 disciples are the top 3 of this year's tournament. According to the rules, they will enter the Martial Skills Pavilion to choose a profound level cultivation method. Arrange it for them." "Humph, I was wondering why an alchemy maniac like you was willing to come out. It turns out that you have a mission." The hunchbacked old man snorted. "If you don't drink with me today, I'll eat all your pills in 2 days." Without waiting for Elder Fang's response, the hunchbacked old man said to Lin Xian and the other 2, "The 3 of you go to the first floor. According to your ranking, each of you will choose a martial skill. The time limit is 30 minutes. Lin Xian and the other 2 respectfully agreed. Then, they excitedly walked into the Martial Skills Pavilion. Pushing open the vermilion door, Lin Xian walked in. Inside were rows of bookshelves, but there was no one. In the entire hall of the first floor, there were only Lin Xian and the other 2. "It seems that the Martial Skills Pavilion is open on a daily basis. Let's hurry and find a suitable martial skill," Duanfei said. The 3 of them did not delay and began to busy themselves. Lin Xian walked to a row of bookshelves and picked up a book to read. However, he found that there was only a name and a brief introduction. There was not a single word about cultivation. After thinking for a moment, he felt relieved. The martial skills pavilion was an important place in the sect. Of course, martial skills would not be easily placed here. It should be that the inner sect disciples chose a martial skill according to the brief introduction, and the elders would teach them the real cultivation content. Lin Xian slightly tidied up his situation. He found that he did not need to change his swordsmanship for the time being. The thunderous sword art was still his strongest martial skill. For the time being, he did not need a new swordsmanship. As for the footwork and body refining martial skills, he cultivated them to the middle yellow rank. Moreover, they were cultivated to the great perfection stage. As his cultivation increased, these two martial skills fell behind. Whether it was footwork or body refining martial skills, Lin Xian decided to choose footwork. He did not particularly need body refining martial skills. However, in terms of footwork, he fell behind by a lot. If he encountered a speed-type disciple like Duanfei, he would not have any advantage. With a goal in mind, Lin Xian quickly began to search. Chapter 63. On the first floor of the martial skill pavilion, most of them were low-level profound rank martial arts. Only a small portion were mid-level profound rank martial arts. Lin Xian quickly flipped through them and searched for them according to his own characteristics. Crane Shadow Steps low-level profound rank martial arts. Created by imitating the movements of flying demonic birds to hunt. Nimble and fast. Able to cross a river on a reed when practiced to large success. Traceless Steps, mid-level profound rank martial arts. Graceful and nimble. Practiced to large success. Leaves no trace when walking on snow. Suddenly, the name of a book attracted his attention. Phantom Thunder Steps, mid-level profound rank martial arts. Practiced to large success. Speed is like rushing thunder. Can use thunder and lightning to leave after images in the air. It is difficult to distinguish between real and fake. Can also detonate after images to attack enemies. Note: this cultivation technique requires thunder attribute. Also, its difficulty far surpasses ordinary mid-level profound rank martial arts. Must be chosen carefully. Although it was only a few sentences, it clearly introduced the advantages and disadvantages of this movement technique. Lin Xian just so happened to have thunder attribute spirit energy. This phantom thunder steps was very suitable for him. After making up his mind, Lin Xian didn't look at anything else. He looked around and found that Duan Fei and Shangguan Luyun were still searching. Thus, he took the book and walked out of the door. Elder Fang, Elder Mo, disciple has already chosen. Lin Xian saw the two elders as soon as he walked out, so he said respectfully. Oh, so fast? The two elders were slightly surprised. The first floor of the martial skill pavilion contained thousands of martial arts, and they were all profound rank cultivation techniques. Ordinary disciples would be fascinated by the variety of martial arts inside the pavilion for the first time. But this little guy in front of them didn't even take half an incense stick of time to choose. How could the two not be surprised? This child's temperament is very decisive. Not bad, not bad. Elder Fang smiled and nodded. In addition to their own talent, a martial artist's belief and character were also very important. Lin Xian was a very decisive person. This made Elder Fang very gratified. Kid, let me see what you chose. Elder Mo was also curious. Lin Xian originally planned to ask the two elders for the cultivation method of the Phantom Thunder Steps. Now that he heard Elder Mo's words, he straightforwardly handed it over. It's actually the Phantom Thunder Steps. Elder Mo was surprised. He looked at Lin Xian in surprise and said in a low voice, You are a Thunder Attribute martial artist? Yes. Lin Xian nodded. All the disciples who had watched the competition knew about this, and he had no intention of hiding it. After all, only by displaying a certain level of strength would the sect vigorously nurture you. At that moment, he stretched out his palm and activated his cultivation technique. A layer of faint golden light surged onto his palm. Tiny golden arcs of electricity shuttled back and forth continuously, emitting a faint sound of thunder. Golden lightning? Elder Hiroshi was even more surprised. Normal lightning was blue, and the more powerful ones were purple. However, this golden lightning arc was very rare. Furthermore, he felt a sense of familiarity from it, but he couldn't recall what it was. Although this Mirage Thunder Steps is a middle profound rank martial art, it's even harder to train than a high profound rank martial art. You have to think clearly and not waste your time, Elder Mo reminded. Many thanks for old Mo's reminder. This disciple is confident that he can master this phantom thunder steps, Lin Xian said gratefully. Elder Mo nodded and didn't say anything else. Lin Xian held the book and waited by the side. The second to come out was Shangguan Luyun. When he saw Lin Xian, he was stunned for a moment. It was as if he didn't expect Lin Xian to come out earlier than him. When the time was almost up, Duan Fei came out. At this point, the three of them had finished choosing their cultivation techniques. Elder Mo brought the three of them to the side door of the Martial Skills Pavilion, then took out 3 copies and handed them to the three of them. Following that, his face sank. Suddenly, an aura surged out from his body. It was like 100,000 mountains, making it hard for people to breathe. He said in a deep voice, "The cultivation techniques of the Martial Skills Pavilion can only be trained by yourself. You cannot pass it on to others. Otherwise, you will be punished according to the sect rules." This aura made people feel despair. No one would have thought that this seemingly ordinary old man would have such a profound cultivation. Lin Xian and the other two nodded in agreement, and promised that they would not leak it out. Elder Mo's face relaxed, and the pressure faded away like a tide. Lin Xian and the other two received the martial arts. Under Elder Fang's lead, they returned to the outer sect. Lin Xian bid farewell to Elder Fang and Duan Fei and returned to his residence. He stroked the ring on his finger and pondered. The 3 rewards for first place were too important to him. First of all, this storage ring would make it very convenient for him to travel in the future. Although it was only a low-grade human-level storage ring, it was enough for Lin Xian. In about 10 cubic meters of space, there were only these 2 things. One was a small white porcelain bottle. Inside it was a 3rd-grade spirit-gathering pill. The other was a middle-grade mystic-ranked martial art, Phantom Thunder Steps. With a thought, the small white porcelain bottle appeared in his hand. This pill that could raise one's cultivation level made him very excited. As for when to use it, he was a little hesitant. I have just advanced to the 6th rank of the meridian condensing stage. If I continue to advance, it will cause my cultivation level to become unstable. It is not good for me. It is better to keep it and wait for it to stabilize before using it. The effect will be better. Moreover, if I encounter danger, this pill is also a life-saving method. Thinking of this, Lin Xian flipped his palm and put away the small white porcelain bottle. Then, he took out the Phantom Thunder Steps and carefully read it. After half an incense stick of time, he put down the book. His expression was uncertain. The book was right. It was indeed difficult to cultivate. This was his first time coming into contact with a mystic-ranked martial art. He did not know how difficult a high-grade mystic-ranked martial art was, but he knew that the Phantom Thunder Steps was much more difficult than the Thunderclap Sword Art. The Thunderclap Sword Art was a high-grade yellow-ranked martial art. Its difficulty lay in precise control and abnormal speed. Furthermore, Lord Alcohol had said that the Thunderclap Sword Art he had was only a simplified version. The true Thunderclap Sword Art was infinitely powerful. The Phantom Thunder Steps was similar to the Thunderclap Sword Art in terms of speed. However, it also had a unique aspect. It was the word illusion. It used the power of thunder to condense an afterimage. Not only could it confuse the enemy, it could also be used as a means of attack. In other words, thunder was the core and illusion was the means. Lin Xian had grasped the core. As long as he learned all the means, the Phantom Thunder Steps would be considered a success. It looks like attributes are indeed very important, Lin Xian sighed. As long as he had the core attribute, he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort when learning the later martial arts of the same attribute. Lord Alcohol said that my longevity art can transform into any attribute. What kind of cultivation technique is this longevity art? Lin Xian really wanted to know, but Lord Alcohol was now in a deep slumber. Even if he asked, that fellow would probably not tell him. Let's not care about this for now. I'll try to master the Phantom Thunder Steps first. Lin Xian made a decision. When he bid farewell to Elder Fang, he learned that the third stage would be held in 5 days. This meant that he had 5 days to master the Phantom Thunder Steps to the rudimentary realm. Let me see how difficult the mid-grade mystic ranked martial art is. Lin Xian carried the Crimson Flame sword and prepared to head to the Taihang Mountains to cultivate. Chapter 64. 5 days passed in a flash. Tomorrow was the day of the third round of the inner sect tryouts. Lin Xian had mastered the Phantom Thunder Steps in these 5 days. His speed was almost 1.5 times faster than when he used the flickering shadow steps. Even if he met Duan Fei, Lin Xian was confident that he could compete with him in speed. It's worthy of being called an intermediate profound level martial art. It's so powerful just at the beginning. Lin Xian was looking forward to the results when he mastered it. The night passed in silence. The next day, Lin Xian arrived at the martial arts practice field early to prepare for the third round. After him, more and more disciples arrived. They were all disciples who had passed the first 2 rounds. There were a total of 103 people. Lin Xian knew many of them. Beside him stood Tang Yu, Yin Qingyi, Luo Yi, and the others. Everyone was casually chatting. Not long after, a few black dots appeared in the sky and quickly flew towards the martial arts practice field. Ever since Lin Xian's right eye fused with the Black Lotus, not only could it form a black vortex, but his eyesight had also improved. He could see things very far away. He raised his head and found that the black dots were large ships flying rapidly in the sky. Rumble! The 3 ships were very fast. One of them landed on the martial arts practice field, causing a wave of air that caused the disciples to retreat. The cabin door opened and 3 middle-aged men in purple robes walked out. The one in the lead was the square-faced middle-aged man. He stood at the bow of the ship and looked down at the 103 disciples. He said loudly, "Line up and board the ship. I'll take you to the third round." Everyone was puzzled. They didn't know where they were going, but they didn't slow down. One by one, they jumped onto the ship. The ship was very big. Even with 103 disciples on board, it didn't seem crowded. Lin Xian stood on the ship and curiously sized it up. He found that although the ship was made of wood, it was extremely hard. It wasn't something that a meridian condensing realm cultivator could damage. "Rise!" the square-faced middle-aged man ordered. The ship that was more than 100 feet long shook a few times. Then, it slowly rose into the sky and flew away with the other 2 ships. When the ship took off, the square-faced middle-aged man ignored the crowd and walked into the cabin. The 100 or so people looked at each other, feeling uneasy. Furthermore, the ship was getting faster and faster, and the wind was getting stronger and stronger. When it blew on their bodies, they felt a faint pain. Except for some disciples with special body refinement skills and those with profound strength, the others all revolved their spirit power to form a protective layer on the surface of their bodies to resist the cold. After all, Lin Xian had practiced the Golden Jade body tempering mantra, so he could withstand this kind of wind. However, Tang Yu and Yin Qingyi, who were beside him, had both condensed protective spiritual light around their bodies. Under such strong winds, it was impossible to speak. Many people sat down cross-legged to cultivate. Lin Xian had nothing to do, so he looked around curiously. Finally, his gaze landed on the neighboring ship. The distance between the 2 ships was more than 100 meters, but Lin Xian could still see clearly with his right eye. He found that there were also some youths on the ships, but they were generally older than him. Among them, very few had activated their protective spiritual energy. They were all sitting in silence, wiping the weapons in their hands. Judging by their attire, they should be disciples of the Black Heaven sect. Could they be inner sect disciples? Lin Xian guessed in his heart. However, he had no idea why these people wanted to travel with them. After sailing for about 6 to 8 hours, the ship gradually slowed down. Many disciples stood up, knowing that they were about to reach their destination. In the last part of the journey, the ship slowed down, allowing Lin Xian and the others to see the scene below. However, the scene gave them a fright. Below them was a city. To be exact, it was a city that had been destroyed. Half of the 10-meter city wall had collapsed, and most of the buildings in the city were almost destroyed. There were broken stones and bones everywhere, and there was also a glaring scarlet color. The outer sect disciples were all stunned by the scene in front of them. After a while, someone murmured, "This is a city that has been invaded by demonic beasts. We have arrived at the front line of the war." "What? The front line of the war?" many people exclaimed. The Great Xia Kingdom was not peaceful, especially in the areas that were in contact with the primeval forest. There were often wars, and Lin Xian and the others must have arrived at a battlefield. "We are so weak. How can we defeat those demonic beasts? Isn't this sending us to our deaths?" someone said unhappily. "Yeah, I don't want to be eaten by demonic beasts," many disciples said. "Shut up, a bunch of trash," Jiang Nilong said coldly in the crowd. "I don't think the sect will send us directly to the front line." "Everyone, don't be impatient," Duan Fei said in a low voice. Lin Xian looked at the ruined scene on the ground, and his mood was slightly gloomy. This was a cruel world. The weak would be eaten, and only the strong could survive. Suddenly, his eyebrows twitched, and he quickly turned around. The muscles on his body were all tensed up, and he stared at the sky with a serious expression. A sharp cry rang out, shaking everyone's eardrums and making them dizzy. The outer sect disciples all channeled their spiritual power to resist. At the same time, a layer of light green energy shield appeared on the ship, covering the entire ship. "So scary. What is that sound?" Everyone was shocked. Whoosh! A huge shadow was cast on the ship, and a large gray bird that was more than 10 meters long came to the top of everyone's heads and swooped down. "Damn, it's an iron-clawed eagle! It's so big, it's already beyond the pulse condensation stage." Someone recognized the strange bird above their heads. Boom! The pair of silver claws hit the green energy shield, causing it to shake. However, the green energy shield was only slightly deformed, and then it was as good as new. At this time, the cabin door opened, and a square-faced middle-aged man walked out. Behind him were 2 young men in their 20s. "Evil beast!" The square-faced middle-aged man looked at the iron-clawed eagle above his head and snorted. Then, a sword light lit up like a red waterfall, instantly piercing the chest of the iron-clawed eagle, leaving a 2-meter-long wound. Blood splattered in the air, and gray feathers fluttered in the air. The iron-clawed eagle screeched miserably and quickly flew away. "What a terrifying sword!" Lin Xian looked at the square-faced middle-aged man with dread. That sword was too sharp, and it could almost kill a group of outer sect disciples. After repelling the iron-clawed eagle, the square-faced middle-aged man said indifferently, "I'm the person in charge this time. You can call me Elder Gu. This time, the content of your test is a battle, a real battle. I will send you to a small battlefield. There are no demonic beasts inside, only some fierce beasts. Their strength is similar to yours, and your task is to kill these fierce beasts. After you kill the fierce beasts, you need to cut off their left ears as proof. Finally, you will be ranked according to the number of beasts killed. Of course, this test is dangerous, and there may be casualties. Now I will give you a chance to withdraw. After 10 breaths, give me your answer." Chapter 65. After 10 breaths, no one backed out. Cultivation was to defy the heavens and seize life. In addition, there were no demonic beasts in the test, so none of the disciples chose to back out. "That's good. Remember your choice." Elder Goose smiled cheerfully. The big ship landed in an open space. This was a human stronghold. There were no demonic beasts around. The disciples disembarked and waited for the test. The other two big ships also stopped. The disciples on the ships quickly jumped off and walked towards the stronghold, completely ignoring Lin Xian and the rest. They are true warriors. If you can enter the inner sect, you may become one of them in the future, Elder Gu said. Now you will automatically be divided into 4 groups. Each group will go to a small battlefield. You will live there for 3 days. Enjoy the rest of your life. Elder Gu smiled. Then, 4 young men in purple robes walked out. Each of them was in their 20s. Their auras were far stronger than the disciples. Each of the young men led a group and ran towards the ruins. Lin Xian was in the 3rd group. The young man in the lead was called Yanqing. His cultivation had reached the spiritual sea realm. His aura was unfathomable. The place you are going to is called Battlefield Number 3. It is in the west of the original city. There are no demonic beasts there, only ferocious beasts, Yanqing said. The highest level is rank 3. I suggest you form a group. We are here. Yanqing stopped in front of a tall building. Battlefield Number 3 was just ahead. Remember, don't enter the forest. I will come back to pick you up in 3 days. Yanqing said and left, leaving the group of disciples standing there alone. Oh woo! In the distance, the roar of a beast could be heard. Lin Xian's group of 25 people included Yinqingyi, Hua Yangping, Luo Yi, and others. Some were strong and some were weak. Each of them had their own small groups. After Yanqing left, these small groups immediately took action. Luo Yi said goodbye to Lin Xian and left with the members of the combat group. Let's go, Lin Xian said to Yinqingyi beside him. Just the 2 of us, Yinqingyi whispered. Don't worry. The 2 of us are enough, Lin Xian said with a smile. The 2 of them used their movement techniques and advanced towards the depths of Number 3. The 3rd stage was a test of hunting ferocious beasts. The more ferocious beasts one hunted, the higher one's ranking would be. The ranking in the 3rd stage would determine the distribution of resources after entering the inner sect. Therefore, if he wanted to have a good time after entering the inner sect, he had to kill as many ferocious beasts as possible. Lin Xian's cultivation was at the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage, and Yinqingyi was at the peak of the 5th level. Moreover, she was a sword array master, and was very suited for teamwork. What sword formations do you know? Lin Xian asked. He had to understand before making a decision. Yes, I know the illusory sword formation for energy transfer, the silver light sword formation for attack, and the bright moon sword formation for defense, Yinqingyi said. I'll lure the fierce beasts in a while, then you use the silver light sword array to attack them. Lin Xian made a plan and then went to find the fierce beasts. Vicious beasts weren't too strong. Generally, a rank 3 vicious beast was equivalent to a rank 7 meridian condensing period. A rank 2 vicious beast was equivalent to a rank 6 meridian condensing period, and a rank 1 vicious beast was equivalent to a rank 5 meridian condensing period. However, these ferocious beasts were very ferocious, and their bodies had a very heavy killing intent. If one was timid, their legs would probably go soft from fear. Lin Xian observed for a while and found that the fierce beasts here were usually in packs, and most of them were more than 5. If it was a single person, it wouldn't be easy to deal with them. He found that 6 rank 1 vicious beasts, crimson flame wolves, had fur that was like flames, burning fiercely. Lin Xian used the phantom thunder step, turning into an afterimage as he rushed over. Without needing him to do anything, these crimson flame wolves bared their fangs and pounced on him. Their sharp claws left streaks of cold light in the air, incomparably swift and fierce. Lin Xian nimbly passed by the 6 crimson flame wolves, and then led them to the trap. The 6 crimson flame wolves chased after him like crazy. In their eyes, Lin Xian was a very delicious meal. Silver light sword array! Lin Xian led them closer, and then shouted at Yinqingyi. 1. A silver light was inserted in the middle of the crimson flame wolves, forming a sword array that was about 10 feet long. Yinqingyi's face was tense as she activated the sword art. Suddenly, dozens of silver sword rays appeared in the sword array, whistling as they pierced towards the crimson flame wolves. Awoo! The 6 crimson flame wolves were attacked, and the fur on their bodies immediately stood up. Like burning flames, they pounced on Yinqingyi fiercely. Bang! Lin Xian attacked from the side, and with a slash of his sword, a crimson flame wolf fell to the ground. After smelling the fresh blood, the remaining 5 crimson flame wolves seemed to be stimulated and became abnormally violent. Soon, they rushed out of the sword array. 3 of them pounced on Lin Xian, and 2 came in front of Yinqingyi, opening their mouths to bite her. Yinqingyi's small face was pale with fright. With a wave of her small hand, she hurriedly used the bright moon's sword array. Behind her, a silver moon was faintly discernible, and the bright moonlight formed a protective shield, protecting her. Bang! Bang! 2 crimson flame wolves collided with the silver moon and bounced back violently, letting out mournful cries. However, they quickly got up and pounced on Yinqingyi again. Yinqingyi gritted her teeth and used the silver light sword array again. The 2 arrays were used at the same time, and immediately injured the 2 crimson flame wolves. On the other side, Lin Xian fought 3 crimson flame wolves alone with ease. Golden electric arcs flashed under his feet, and he shuttled between the 3 crimson flame wolves. The crimson flame sword in his hand stabbed rapidly, and he could kill a crimson flame wolf in 2 or 3 strokes. In the blink of an eye, the 3 crimson flame wolves were easily killed by Lin Xian. He cut off their left ears, and then looked at Yinqingyi. Under the 2 sword arrays, the 2 crimson flame wolves did not hurt Yinqingyi. Instead, more and more wounds appeared on their bodies, and they were gradually unable to hold on. Poof! One of the crimson flame wolves' throat was pierced by the silver light, and it fell to the ground dead. The other ferocious beast was also pierced. It roared unwillingly, and then fell to the ground, unable to get up. Lin Xian gave Yinqingyi a thumbs up, and then walked over with a smile. Looks like the 3rd stage isn't that difficult. At our speed, we should be able to kill many ferocious beasts. Yinqingyi nodded. At the same time, the other disciples also killed some ferocious beasts. They worked together, and quickly killed the ferocious beasts. Looks like these ferocious beasts aren't that powerful. A disciple laughed. That's right. When I enter the inner sect, I'll come to the front line of the battlefield to earn some battle merit points. The disciples chatted and laughed. In their opinion, the 3rd stage was much easier than the previous 2 stages. Awoo! A wolf's howl pierced the sky, and it sounded sad and distant. Let's go, kill the ferocious beasts, and enter the inner sect. The disciples were excited. However, it did not take long for them to realize that something was wrong. As the wolf's howl fell, a large number of figures suddenly appeared around the ruins. One by one, the crimson flame wolves stuck out their long tongues. They stared coldly at the Black Heaven sect disciples and walked toward them step by step. At a glance, there were tens of thousands of them. Chapter 66. Countless red flame wolves surrounded the disciples. As far as the eye could see, it was a sea of red. Oh no, retreat! The disciples' faces changed as they retreated in fear. If they were trapped here, the consequences would be unimaginable. On the other side, Lin Xian and Yinqingyi were facing the same situation. Hundreds of red flame wolves stared at the 2 of them and growled. Oh no, we were too careless! Lin Xian's face was grave. He stuck close to Yinqingyi and retreated quickly. Awoo! Dozens of red flame wolves at the front pounced on them. Their sharp claws danced in the air, aiming for their heads, chests, and other vital points. Courting death! Lin Xian swung the red flame sword in his hand. Golden lightning whizzed out and pierced through the red flame wolves in the sky. The powerful electricity contained in the lightning caused the red flame wolves to go numb. Their bodies stiffened instantly. Thump! 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 The red flame wolves fell to the ground, their fur charred black. They twitched continuously. Lin Xian killed 10 red flame wolves with a swing of his sword in the blink of an eye. He and Ying Qingyi leaped backward with all their might. In the next moment, the red flame wolves howled and chased after Lin Xian and Ying Qingyi. Not only the two of them, but all the disciples on the battlefield were attacked. At this point, the outer disciples realized that the battlefield was not as simple as they thought. Killing 1 or 2 beasts did not mean anything. The most important thing was to survive in the midst of these beasts. This was also the predicament that humans faced. Although the beasts did not know martial arts, they were numerous. If it was a protracted battle, humans would not be able to afford it. Moreover, there were still beasts above the beasts. Some of the stronger beasts could even transform into human form and contend with the experts of the human race. Swoosh! Lin Xian and Ying Qingyi squeezed into a collapsed building. The narrow entrance blocked the pack of crimson flame wolves. Phew! We are safe for the time being. Lin Xian wiped off his cold sweat. The situation just now was very dangerous. If they had run any slower and been surrounded by the wolves, there would only be one outcome. What should we do now? Ying Qingyi asked nervously. Let's wait. Logically speaking, the content of the test shouldn't be so abnormal. No one can complete it under such circumstances. Lin Xian guessed. Perhaps we've encountered a special situation. If that's the case, I believe the sect will soon send reinforcements. Ying Qingyi nodded and found a clean place to sit down. However, not long after, there was a loud bang. The hole that Lin Xian had blocked with a rock was suddenly blasted open, and a ferocious scarlet flame wolf rushed in. Chi! Lin Xian waved his arm, and the giant sword struck out horizontally, sending the crimson flame wolf flying, and coincidentally knocking away a few hungry wolves that wanted to come in. Qingyi, use the sword formation to block the entrance! Lin Xian hurriedly called out. Ying Qingyi pinched out a sword seal with her palm, and a 3-foot-long sword was inserted at the entrance of the cave. A circular sword formation was divided into 2 halves by the entrance of the cave. One half was inside, and the other half was outside. The silver sword rays were like silver snakes, dancing within the sword formation. Each time, they would pierce through a scarlet flame wolf. However, the fresh blood made the wolf pack even more frenzied. A scarlet flame wolf fell, but more of them pounced towards the entrance of the cave. Soon, the wolf corpses outside piled up into a small mountain, blocking the entrance of the cave. Ying Qingyi was sweating profusely, and her little face was flushed red. She looked extremely adorable. Lin Xian handed her a recovery elixir and told her to rest. I estimate that it won't be long before you break through to the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage. Lin Xian looked at Ying Qingyi and said, Yes, the bottleneck has loosened a lot. Ying Qingyi nodded obediently. This is the first time I've activated the sword formation for such a long time. Have a good rest, Lin Xian said with a smile. Ying Qingyi put away the sword formation, and then sat cross-legged on the ground to regulate her breathing. Her delicate body was suffused with a faint glow, as bright as the moonlight. Lin Xian did not disturb her. Instead, he looked around the small space. There were many tables and chairs, as well as a few broken stone pillars. The ground was covered with an animal skin carpet. It looked like this place used to be rich. Lin Xian observed for a while, but did not find anything of value. Then, he retracted his gaze. Beside him, the glow on Ying Qingyi's body grew brighter and brighter. It was as if a silver moon had wrapped around her. Is she about to break through? Lin Xian's lips curled up. Boom! At this moment, there was a loud noise outside. The corpses of the scarlet flame wolves were torn apart and scattered to the sides. The entrance of the cave has been opened? Lin Xian's face darkened. He grabbed the scarlet flame sword, and in a flash, he came to the entrance of the cave. You just need to break through. I'm here, Lin Xian said in a low voice. Lin Xian's words caused Ying Qingyi's delicate body to tremble behind him. Her spiritual energy, which had been somewhat chaotic, immediately stabilized. Lin Xian felt the change behind him, and only then did he relax. He looked outside the cave with rapt attention, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. Through the cracks in the rocks, he saw a huge scarlet flame wolf outside the cave. It was 3 times the size of an ordinary scarlet flame wolf, and it was staring fiercely at the entrance of the cave. This huge scarlet flame wolf had a strong murderous aura on its body. There was also a faint trace of demon aura. The surrounding wolves all lowered their heads in front of it, and whimpered. This aura. Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. This is a level 3 dire beast. A level 3 dire beast was equivalent to a level 7 condensing meridian stage cultivator. Moreover, it was more ferocious and difficult to deal with than an ordinary level 7 cultivator. This should be the leader of the wolf pack. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with. Lin Xian's thunder and lightning spiritual energy was ready to be released. As soon as the leader wolf made a move, he would immediately draw his sword. Awoo! The leader wolf's green eyes were filled with a cold light. Its entire body arched, and the murderous aura on its body mixed with a trace of demon aura enveloped it. Lin Xian did not dare to act rashly. If he broke this wall, Yinxingyi, who was behind him, would be in danger. He could only intimidate the leader wolf now, and stall for time. As long as Yinxingyi succeeded in her advancement, everything would be easy. That's right, try my sword essence. Lin Xian's lips curled up. He slowly injected spiritual energy into the seed of sword essence, and then slowly activated it. In the next moment, a fierce aura burst out from his body. Lin Xian seemed to have turned into a bolt of golden lightning, filled with a dangerous aura. The golden electric current dashed in the air, as if it wanted to tear everything apart. Awoo! The huge leader wolf kept stomping on the ground with its 4 limbs, and its eyes were filled with fear. The originally ferocious leader wolf became as docile as a puppy in front of Lin Xian. The moment he drew his sword, there was a loud sound of thunder between heaven and earth, and a golden sword ray flashed past. Chapter 67. The body of the alpha wolf, which was the size of a buffalo, was split in half and fell to the ground. Inside the cave, Lin Xian closed his eyes and took a deep breath. That sword just now allowed him to experience a trace of the concept of thunder and lightning. It was incomparably mysterious. Outside the cave, the death of the alpha wolf caused the surrounding crimson flame wolves to be terrified. They all retreated, not daring to move forward. Far away from the third battlefield, there was a red-haired youth riding a crimson flame demon wolf. This wolf was about the same size as an ordinary crimson flame wolf, but the aura it emitted was stronger than the alpha wolf. Moreover, it emitted traces of demonic energy. It was actually a demonic beast. And on top of this demonic beast, there was actually a youth. If one looked closely, they would find that this red-haired youth was different from a normal human. First of all, his eyes were actually dark green, like 2 balls of fire, burning and jumping. Behind him, there was a red tail, like a red flame, that kept swaying. Beside the red-haired youth, there was another person. His entire body was covered in a black robe, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. However, his voice was very young. The Black Sky sect is one of the 3 sects of the Cloud State. If we can capture all of their disciples in one fell swoop, it will be a big blow to them, the black-robed person said. Don't worry. This time, I summoned a total of 4 rank 3 ferocious beasts and countless crimson flame wolves. It's enough to deal with these outer sect disciples. The red-haired youth rode on the demonic beast and said casually. If this matter succeeds, Father will be happy. Yu Ming, thank you so much this time. The red-haired youth's voice had a trace of excitement. The black-robed person called Yu Ming laughed softly. It's Yu Ming's honor to be able to serve young Master Qiyu. The youth called Qiyu grabbed the fur of the crimson flame demon wolf and looked into the distance with a proud expression. Suddenly, his expression froze. What's wrong? Yu Ming asked beside him. A rank 3 crimson flame wolf died. Qiyu was in disbelief. Damn it, they can actually kill a rank 3 ferocious beast. It shouldn't be. Logically speaking, a rank 3 alpha wolf should have at least a few hundred crimson flame wolves around it. This kind of power, a rank 6 meridian condensing stage cultivator would not dare to resist, no matter how many people there are. Only a cultivator whose cultivation has reached the 8th step or higher would be able to kill the alpha wolf. Could it be that an inner disciple of the Black Heaven sect is here? The black-robed man, Yu Ming, guessed. Humph! He actually dared to kill my subordinate in front of me. He truly deserves to die, Chiyu said hatefully. Yu Ming, come with me to take a look. No! The black-robed netherworld king stopped the young man from moving. We've mobilized so many wolves, so we must have attracted the attention of the Black Heaven sect. If we go out now, we'll be sending ourselves to their doorstep. Red Moon seemed to know that he could not be reckless. He gritted his teeth and said, "Launch another round of attacks and then retreat." Then, he patted the crimson flame demon wolf beneath him. The demonic beast raised its head to the sky and howled like a wolf. When the scarlet flame wolves on the battlefield heard this howl, they all bared their teeth and became abnormally violent. Many disciples were injured by these wolves, and some even lost their lives. However, most of the disciples were like Lin Xian, hiding in the dilapidated buildings and waiting for the sect to rescue them. In a stronghold near the battlefield, a few purple-robed youths rushed in. "Elder Gu, this is bad. There are suddenly many scarlet flame wolves in the trial battlefield, and they are all led by Class 3 ferocious beasts. I'm afraid this is a premeditated attack." Elder Gu stood up abruptly. "The scarlet flame wolves are attacking! Quickly send people to rescue those disciples!" He knew how terrifying the wolves were. Moreover, these trial disciples had never truly experienced the cruelty of war. They could not stop the ferocious wolves at all. Elder Gu personally moved out and gathered the disciples on the other 2 spirit ships. They cooperated with the purple-robed youths and entered the 4 trial battlefields. Battlefield number 3, inside the ruins of the building. The light on Yin Qingyi's body faded, and a powerful spiritual energy belonging to a meridian condensing stage 6 was emitted. Her long eyelashes fluttered slightly, and then she opened her eyes. In front of her was a sturdy back, standing tall like a mountain. "As Senior Brother Lin!" Yin Qingyi called out softly. Poof! Lin Xian killed the frenzied scarlet flame wolf with a sword, then turned his head and said, "You're awake. Congratulations on advancing." Yin Qingyi looked at the wolf corpses at the entrance of the cave, and her heart was moved. Senior Brother Lin actually fought against so many scarlet flame wolves alone to protect me. She walked gently behind Lin Xian, then drew her long sword, preparing to fight against the wolves with Lin Xian. "Let's go, let's charge out," Lin Xian said. If other disciples were here, their jaws would definitely drop. Everyone else was hiding from the wolves, but Lin Xian actually wanted to charge out. This was simply courting death. But Yin Qingyi only nodded vigorously. She raised her small hand slightly, and a silver sword light shot out of the cave. Silver light sword array. After entering Meridian Condensing Stage 6, Yin Qingyi's silver light sword array's range had doubled. It was more than 3 feet wide, and its attack power had increased significantly. The silver light danced like a waterfall, strangling the scarlet flame wolves in the sword array. Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi's figures flashed, and they rushed out of the cave. "Qingyi, you manage the sword array. Leave the rest to me," Lin Xian said. "Okay." Yin Qingyi's small hands formed another seal, and a bright moon appeared behind her. Bright Moon Sword Array. With the 2 arrays combined, it had both offense and defense. Yin Qingyi stood outside the cave, activating the sword array. Phantom Thunder Step. Lin Xian transformed into a golden bolt of lightning, shuttling through the wolf pack. He did not kill them directly. Against countless wolves, Lin Xian's thunderclap sword art was fast, but it took a lot of effort to activate it over a long period of time. He only sent the scarlet flame wolves flying, then threw them into the silver light sword array. It had to be said that a group attack like the sword array was very effective in this situation. All the scarlet flame wolves that entered the silver light sword array were mercilessly pierced through by the silver sword light. At this time, the silver light sword array was like a meat grinder, crazily harvesting the scarlet flame wolves. Gradually, the wolf corpses in the sword array piled up into a small hill. In a flash, Lin Xian came to the periphery of the sword array and punched out. The golden fist whizzed out, forming a fierce fist wind, sending the scarlet flame wolf corpses on the ground flying. Then, he continued to throw the remaining scarlet flame wolves into the sword array. In the other 3 battlefields, Shangguan Luyun and the other outer sect 4 heroes also gathered some disciples and fought with all their might. However, the scarlet flame wolves they killed were not even 1/10 of Lin Xian's. Moreover, they still had to face the threat of the leader wolf. However, this situation did not last long. Soon, the sect's support team rushed over. There was a support team in each battlefield. It was formed by a young man in a purple robe and 30 inner sect disciples. They were like a sharp knife, quickly stabbing into the wolf pack and tearing open a gap. Many disciples were rescued and joined them. In the end, except for the disciples who died, the rest of the outer sect disciples were rescued by the support team. Lin Xian is in this battlefield, but we haven't found him yet, an outer sect disciple said. Lin Xian, number 1 in the arena battle. Could it be that he shouldn't be dead? I think he's hiding. Go and find him immediately, the young man in the purple robe ordered. Chapter 68. The purple-robed youth ordered. If Lin Xian died here, it would be a great loss to the sect. Among the wolves, there must be an alpha wolf. We haven't found it yet. Maybe the alpha wolf is with Lin Xian, an inner disciple said. Yes, we have searched the east and south. Only the west and north are left. The west is close to the forest. The possibility of the alpha wolf being there is very high, the purple-robed youth said. They went to the west. 30 inner disciples and a dozen outer disciples who were rescued followed the purple-robed youth to the west of the battlefield. The group moved quickly and killed all the red flame wolves that tried to pounce on them. The purple-robed youth frowned. The closer they got to the west, the fewer red flame wolves there were. Originally, they would encounter many red flame wolves in other directions. However, in the west, although there were red flame wolves pouncing on them, there were obviously fewer of them. There is a fluctuation of spiritual energy in front. Everyone, speed up. The purple-robed youth was delighted and suppressed his doubts. However, when 40 to 50 people arrived and sensed the fluctuation of spiritual energy, they were all stunned. The ground was covered with corpses of red flame wolves. Fresh blood had already stained the ground and there was a fishy smell everywhere. In front of them, there were 2 figures. One of them was like a golden ray of light flashing. Every time, a pack of red flame wolves was sent flying. These red flame wolves all fell into the silver sword array. A delicate young lady was trying her best to maintain the sword array. The silver sword radiance filled the sky like silver snakes dancing. In a few moves, the red flame wolves in the sword array were killed. Lin Xian! Someone shouted. Whoosh! A figure stopped in midair. It was Lin Xian. He looked back and saw 40 to 50 people standing behind him. The leader was a purple-robed youth. They are from the sect. Lin Xian sent a red flame wolf flying with a sword. He then went to Yin Qingyi and asked her to stop the sword array. These were all killed by the 2 of you? An inner disciple asked uncertainly. Yes, thank you for coming to help, Lin Xian said. Hiss. After receiving Lin Xian's affirmation, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. So many scarlet flame wolves were actually killed by 2 outer court disciples. This made them feel somewhat unreal. What about Chief Wolf? An inner disciple was unwilling to give up and continued to ask. Dead? Lin Xian pointed at a corpse on the ground. Everyone looked over and saw the corpse of a scarlet flame wolf. It was 3 times larger than usual. Monster! Pervert! Fierce man! This was everyone's evaluation of Lin Xian. As for Yin Qingyi, everyone was also full of praise. No one would have thought that such a delicate young girl could have such a terrifying sword formation. We found 19 people in total. The remaining 6 disciples are dead. The purple-robed youth sighed. Let's go back to the base. Elder Gu was furious. All the elders of the Xiantian sect in the stronghold were furious. There had never been a trial like this, where they had lost nearly a third of their disciples. This is the sect's mistake. We were actually ambushed by the Scarlet Flame Wolves. Elder Gu said in a deep voice. The sect will definitely avenge this. And all of you will enter the inner court. Inner court! The outer court disciples who participated in the trial were all shocked. They had worked so hard just to enter the inner court. Junior brother, don't worry. I will definitely avenge you. When we become stronger in the inner court, we will definitely massacre the Scarlet Flame Wolves. Many disciples secretly swore in their hearts. You were lucky to be able to survive. It is also your strength. In this trial, there are a few people who performed very well. They will be rewarded by the sect. Everyone looked at the few people in front of them. There was Lin Xian, Yin Qingyi, Shangguan Luyun, and so on. However, more people were looking at Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi. The news of them killing hundreds of Scarlet Flame Wolves had spread. Everyone looked at the two of them as if they were monsters. Tang Yu looked at the two of them with a hint of jealousy in his eyes. Lin Xian was fine with these gazes. He did not have much of a reaction. On the other hand, Yin Qingyi's small hands were nervously holding the corner of her clothes. Her face was full of shyness. As Lin Xian and Yin Qingyi had killed the most beasts, the two of them were tied for first place. In addition to Lin Xian's previous results, the first place of the inner court qualifier this time was Lin Xian. As for the rewards, they would be given out when they returned to the sect. The crowd rested for half a day. Under Elder Gu's lead, they returned to the Black Heaven sect. After returning to the outer court and resting for 3 days, these disciples entered the inner court and became inner court disciples. The inner court disciples were treated very well. Every 3 months, they could enter the martial skills pavilion to choose a cultivation technique. Every month, the inner court elders would give them pointers on martial arts. The living quarters were also far better than the outer court disciples. Every disciple had their own small courtyard. There was also a small training room in the house to ensure that they would not be disturbed during their training. In other aspects, every inner court disciple had to complete a sect mission every month. There were no other compulsory missions. Of course, if you wanted to exchange for more treasures, you would need a ranking on the stone tablet and battle merit points. The ranking on the stone tablets was a major feature of the inner court. In the inner court plaza, there were several stone tablets that were more than 3 feet tall. They were filled with names. Different stone tablets represented different areas. The order of the names represented the disciples' ranking. The higher the ranking, the more resources one could enjoy. This formed a virtuous cycle. When Lin Xian and the other outer court disciples first entered the inner court, they went to look at the unique stone tablets. There were a total of 3 stone tablets. They were the inner court ranking, the cultivation tower ranking, and the battle merit ranking. The inner court ranking was the ranking of all the disciples in the annual inner court assembly. A total of 100 disciples were included. The ranking of the cultivation pagoda was based on each disciple's performance in the cultivation pagoda. As for what the cultivation pagoda was, Lin Xian only found out after asking. It was a place that could assist in cultivation. At the same time, it could also conduct various tests. As for the details, he would only know after he tried it himself. As for the last one, it was the battle merit ranking. Battle merit points could be obtained by going to the front lines to hunt demonic beasts or completing related missions. These 3 stone tablets only recorded the top 100 inner court disciples. Lin Xian discovered that the first name on all 3 stone tablets was the same person. Myriad Sword Star. The number 1 inner court disciple. At the same time, he was also one of the top 10 core disciples. The top 10 core disciples were the core disciples. The 3 major powers in the outer court had their foundations in the inner court. Moreover, behind each power was a core disciple. Lin Xian and the others understood the basic situation. Now, it was up to their own efforts. Lin Xian's goal was to be in the top 10 of each ranking. Only by entering the top 10 would he be able to become a core disciple. Only then would he be able to successfully return to his family. In the evening, Lin Xian returned to his own room. His reward had already been given out. He had obtained the right to use the cultivation tower for 10 hours. Is the cultivation tower really so magical? Lin Xian had a trace of anticipation in his heart. Chapter 69. The cultivation pagoda was one of the holy lands of the inner sect. It had all kinds of magical functions that made the inner sect disciples extremely excited. Lin Xian had just entered the inner sect, so he didn't know how precious 10 hours was to these disciples. If other inner sect disciples knew, they would definitely be jealous to death. The next morning, Lin Xian was woken up. A young girl with a long sword on her back stood outside the door with a smile. She curiously sized up Lin Xian and doubtfully asked, "You're this time's number one, Lin Xian? Nothing special?" The young girl with the long sword on her back carefully looked at him. "That's me. I wonder what senior sister is looking for me for?" Lin Xian was puzzled. "Of course it's to see our instructor?" the young girl very casually said. "Instructor?" Lin Xian was even more puzzled. "You don't know?" The young girl was very surprised. "All new inner sect disciples have their own instructor. He is responsible for everything within the sect, including training and testing. So it's like that. Looks like the treatment of inner sect disciples is really good. There's even someone to guide them. No wonder so many people want to enter the inner sect." Lin Xian gradually understood that there was a big difference between the inner sect and outer sect. However, according to the ranking of the selection, you'll be assigned different instructors. You're very lucky to be assigned to Instructor Murong. The young girl's face was full of pride. "Let's go, follow me to report." The young girl with the long sword on her back waved her hand. Lin Xian followed her out of the small courtyard and into a secluded path. "My name is Yi Qing. You can call me Senior Sister Yi from now on." The young girl in front led the way. "Senior Sister Yi, what kind of person is this Instructor Murong, and how many disciples does she have?" Lin Xian wanted to know some things. "Instructor Murong is very powerful. She's one of the last core disciples. She's very nice, so she won't make things difficult for us," Yi Qing said. "As for the disciples under her, there's a total of 3, including you. One of the core disciples. A total of 3. Lin Xian was a little surprised. He didn't think that his instructor would actually be one of the top 10 core disciples of the previous batch. Moreover, she only had 3 disciples. In the Black Heaven sect, once one was over the age of 25, one would no longer be a disciple. Instead, one would stay in the sect with other identities such as deacons. Instructor Murong was once one of the top 10 core disciples, which was enough to prove her strength. The two quickly moved forward. In front of them was a small palace. Yi Qing brought Lin Xian inside. "Teacher, I've brought Lin Xian," Yi Qing cheerfully said. A graceful figure walked out and stood on the stone platform, looking at Lin Xian. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes, sizing up the figure. She was dressed in light green armor, which accentuated her lithe figure. She was a very young woman. Lin Xian estimated that she was around 26 or 27 years old. She had short hair, which made her look less charming, but more heroic. "Greetings, Instructor Murong," Lin Xian respectfully said. Instructor Murong nodded. "Lin Xian, first place in the selection, not bad. However, there are many geniuses in the inner sect. If you don't work hard, you will be suppressed sooner or later. I hope you can work hard and step into a higher realm of martial arts. Thank you for your reminder, Instructor. Lin Xian will remember it. Next, let me see what level you have reached." Murong Qianling pulled out the long saber at her waist. "Bring out your full strength and attack me." "Yes." Lin Xian's eyes focused. He flicked his storage ring and a dark red sword appeared in his hand. His figure flashed, and he rushed over. Thunderous sword art. Lin Xian used his best sword art as soon as he came up. Sword chi surged and golden electric arcs jumped. This sword was aimed at Murong Qianling's throat. Who would have thought that Murong Qianling would not retreat and instead move forward to meet Lin Xian's attack head-on? Sword Qi flashed, dazzling people. The long sword in Murong Qianling's hand lightly touched Lin Xian's big sword and then strangely slid towards Lin Xian's throat. Lin Xian felt the tyrannical power instantly break through his lightning defense, causing his big sword to deviate. At the same time, he felt a chill on his neck. The ice-cold sword tip was already at his throat. So fast! Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He couldn't see the sword's trajectory clearly. Of course, if he used his right eye, he might be able to see it clearly. However, his body couldn't make any movements to dodge. If we were on the battlefield, you would already be dead, Murong Qianling coldly said. Lin Xian knew that she was right. However, if it was a life-and-death battle, with his means, he could definitely kill Murong Qianling at the same time. Is this the standard of a core disciple? It's really strong. Lin Xian wasn't depressed. He believed that as long as he was given time, he would soon reach this standard. Your sword technique is very fast, but it's not accurate enough, Murong Qianling said. Although speed can suppress the opponent, if the opponent can find your flaw and attack later, then you'll be in danger. Lin Xian looked pensive. He really hadn't met an opponent who could suppress him. However, today's matter reminded him not to be careless. Of course, if your speed can be so fast that I don't have a chance to attack, then you can also win. Thank you for your guidance, Lin Xian gratefully said. Yi Qing, take him to familiarize him with the sect. Murong Qianling put away her long sword. After bidding farewell to Murong Qianling, the two walked towards the front mountain. How is it? Isn't Instructor Murong powerful? Yi Qing blinked his eyes. You don't have to be disappointed. I was also defeated in one move. Even senior brother Luo didn't escape this fate. I guess Instructor Murong just wants to remind you that there is always someone better than you. She wants to prevent you from being arrogant and causing trouble everywhere. Lin Xian bitterly smiled. It seemed like his fellow disciples had all been beaten by Instructor Murong. Oh right, who is senior brother Luo? He is also Instructor Murong's disciple. He entered the sect earlier than us and is now in the top 30, Yi Qing said with admiration. Lin Xian now had an understanding of his future life. Next, he changed the topic and asked about the cultivation pagoda. When Yi Qing heard that Lin Xian had 10 hours of cultivation time, her small mouth opened wide. Junior brother Lin, you are really lucky. You actually have 10 hours of cultivation time, Yi Qing enviously said. 10 hours, is it very long? Lin Xian didn't understand. You just entered the sect, so you don't know how precious the cultivation pagoda is. To be exact, it is not a product of our mysterious sky sect, but an ancient ruin. Ancient ruin? Lin Xian was stunned. Yes. Although it is broken, the magical things inside are far beyond our understanding. Look, the cultivation pagoda is in front. Yi Qing pointed at a magnificent pagoda in front of them. It was a pitch-black pagoda with 13 floors. Even from afar, one could feel a boundless aura. After walking in, Lin Xian discovered that there was a faint sense of danger around the pagoda. Lin Xian quietly activated his right eye and discovered that there were countless invisible rays of light around the pagoda. It should be a defensive array. Lin Xian took a few more glances before following Yi Qing in. Chapter 70. The cultivation pagoda is divided into many areas. There's the spirit qi area, where the concentration of spirit qi is many times higher than outside. There's also the gravity area, where you can adjust the gravity to different degrees for cultivation. Yi Qing explained as they walked. In addition, there are also some small secret realms, which are like real worlds. There are many powerful creatures inside, and many disciples like to go in to cultivate. I suggest you go to the gravity area. After all, you just entered the inner sect, and increasing your strength is the most important thing. Lin Xian touched his chin. To be honest, he was more interested in the small secret realms. Senior sister, I wonder what the small secret realms are like? You. Yi Qing frowned. You just entered the inner sect, and you're already in a small secret realm. Fine, I'll let you see it, so you don't give up. Yi Qing brought Lin Xian to the third floor of the cultivation pagoda and walked into an empty room. After Lin Xian and Yi Qing entered, the room closed with a bang. The room was very simple, and there was only a strange array platform. Yi Qing pointed at the black array platform and said, Sit on it, then place your identity jade pendant in the groove. Lin Xian did as he was told. An array of light appeared on the array platform, enveloping Lin Xian. He felt his mind shake, as if it had left his body, and was dragged into a mysterious place. While Lin Xian was trying out the small secret realms, a group of people came to the inner sect. The inner sect disciples who were on a mission outside had returned, and among them was Zhang Bin's brother, Zhang Qian. This handsome young man with a saber on his back was furious when he heard that his brother had been killed. And when he found out that the murderer had entered the inner sect, he was even more furious. Lin Xian! I'll definitely kill you! Zhang Qian's face was ferocious. Zhang Qian's return caused the entire inner sect to be in an uproar. Almost everyone knew about this, and when they found out that Lin Xian was actually the #1 new disciple, they were even more excited. However, most of them were just watching a show. They didn't think that a brat who had just entered the inner sect could beat a veteran like Zhang Qian. Lin Xian didn't know what was going on outside. He had already arrived at a special place. With a flash of white light, Lin Xian found himself in an unfamiliar place. It was a space that resembled a maze. There were cold walls, long passages, and no movement. What a strange place, Lin Xian muttered. My body! Suddenly, his expression changed drastically as he realized that the mysterious small sword in his body was no longer there. This caused him to lose focus for a moment. Chi! Chi! Just as he was lost in thought, 3 streaks of sword light appeared silently and pierced towards his vital points. At the critical moment, the vigilance of a martial artist made him come back to his senses. Using the phantom thunderstep, he left behind an afterimage and narrowly avoided this killing move. 3 rays of sword light pierced through the air. Then 3 black-robed men walked out from the void and stared coldly at Lin Xian. What a strange place, what a strange sword art! Lin Xian's heart sank. He finally knew why Yi Qing didn't approve of him coming here. It was too scary. The slightest carelessness would cause him to fall here. However, Lin Xian quickly had a guess. Maybe my body didn't enter, but my mind did. Lin Xian's guess wasn't wrong. This was indeed a strange spiritual space. Yi Qing didn't tell him in advance because he wanted to teach him a lesson. Spiritual space? Lin Xian calmed down. Without the seed of sword intent, it's very difficult for me to display sword intent. I can only rely on my own strength. With a thought, a long sword formed in his hand. There are no restrictions here. I can fully display my strength. Lin Xian laughed and went forward with his sword. The 3 black-robed men were all at the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage. With the 3 of them working together, it was enough to kill a 7th-level meridian condensing stage cultivator. The 3 soundless long swords were like poisonous snakes in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The angle of each attack was very tricky. Lin Xian used the phantom thundersteps. His body was erratic, and in an instant, he arrived behind a black-robed man. The golden sword light flashed, and a bloody hole appeared between the eyebrows of the black-robed man, and he fell down. Puff puff! Another 2 rays of sword light. The other 2 black-robed men were also stabbed between their eyebrows. They didn't have the slightest strength to resist. Although he didn't have the seed of sword intent, Lin Xian could still simulate 1 or 2 lightning sword intent. He didn't stop and continued to move forward. In the outside world, Yi Qing had a smile on her face. She didn't tell Lin Xian in advance about the mystery of this formation because she wanted to teach Lin Xian a lesson. According to her speculation, Lin Xian should be defeated soon. However, an hour had passed, and Lin Xian didn't have the slightest reaction. he was still in the spiritual space. This? Yi Qing's mouth was wide open. She even suspected that there was a problem with the formation. Otherwise, how could she explain Lin Xian not coming out for such a long time? She was very clear about this formation. The opponents inside were very strong. First, there were Meridian Condensing Stage 6 opponents. The number increased from 3 to 10, then Meridian Condensing Stage 7, and so on. According to her speculation about Lin Xian would at most survive the first assassination. When the number increased to 4, Lin Xian would be defeated. However, the situation was completely out of her expectations. After waiting for an entire hour, Lin Xian came out. When Lin Xian's body swayed in the formation, Yi Qing let out a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that there was a problem with the formation. What did you experience in there? Why did you only come out now? Yi Qing asked suspiciously. Oh, my movement technique is good. I can delay the opponents. Lin Xian lied. He didn't want to reveal too much. In fact, in the spiritual space, Lin Xian had already broken through the encirclement of Meridian Condensing Stage 6. Moreover, he was able to withstand the encirclement of 3 Meridian Condensing Stage 7 opponents. It was just that this kind of thing was too scary. He didn't want to cause a sensation. So that's how it is. Hearing that Lin Xian was using his movement technique to delay time, Yi Qing let out a sigh of relief. Let's go. We can use the rest of the time later. After Lin Xian's spirit returned to his body, he found that the fusion with the sword intent seed was even closer. This made him very happy. The two of them left the cultivation pagoda and prepared to go back. At this moment, a group of people surrounded them. You are Lin Xian? A youth with a saber on his back coldly said. Zhang Qian, what do you mean? On the side, Yi Qing was annoyed. Zhang Qian! Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He cautiously looked at the figure in front of him. From that body, he could feel a pressure from the realm. Meridian Condensing Stage 8. Lin Xian was secretly shocked. However, his face was calm. I am Lin Xian. What do you want? Lin Xian's attitude made the surrounding people stunned. It seemed that this youth wasn't afraid of Zhang Qian. Did he have something to rely on? You killed my little brother, and you still dare to ask me what I want. Zhang Qian was like an angry tiger, ready to explode at any time. What do you want? Lin Xian was too lazy to explain. In any case, it was useless. A life for a life. Zhang Qian's voice was like the cold wind of the north, chilling people to the bone. Zhang Qian, you dare! Lin Xian is Instructor Murong's disciple. Yi Qing warned. Instructor Murong. The surrounding people looked at Lin Xian in surprise. They didn't expect him to be Instructor Murong's disciple. Little brat, I will let you know that no one can save you. Zhang Qian still didn't back down. Lin Xian's eyes were cold. He knew that there was no way to resolve this matter. Only one side fell. 3 months later, a life and death battle. Do you dare? Lin Xian slowly opened his mouth. Chapter 71. 3 months from now, the battle of life and death. Lin Xian's voice was sonorous and powerful, shocking the surrounding people. This kid is crazy, he actually wants to challenge Zhang Qian? Haha, I'm dying of laughter. Who does he think he is, a peerless genius? The surrounding people shook their heads, and the people following Zhang Qian laughed wildly. Kid, you have guts, you actually dare to challenge me. Zhang Qian's eyes were full of disdain. Fine, I'll let you live for 3 more months. 3 months from now, I will torture you to death in front of everyone. F***CK. Zhang Qian actually accepted the challenge, and it's a battle of life and death. The surrounding crowd was boiling. Lin Xian's eyes didn't have the slightest trace of emotion. He had confidence in himself that 3 months from now, he would definitely win. Thinking of this, Lin Xian ignored the gazes of the crowd, and left the cultivation pagoda with Yi Qing. After Lin Xian left, the news instantly spread throughout the inner court. Almost everyone was laughing at Lin Xian's arrogance, and there were even some people who predicted the miserable state Lin Xian would be in 3 months. Lin Xian, you are too reckless. Zhang Qian is a rank 8 meridian condensation stage cultivator, and he often goes out on missions, so he has rich combat experience. You still dare to challenge such a person? Yi Qing didn't believe that Lin Xian could reach rank 8 meridian condensation stage in 3 months, and couldn't help but secretly worry for him. Don't worry, senior sister, I know what I'm doing. Lin Xian was very calm. After bidding farewell to Yi Qing, Lin Xian returned to his small courtyard. Today's battle was just a small interlude. He knew that this day would come sooner or later. As long as he comprehended the first level of the Seed of Sword within 3 months, killing Zhang Qian would be as easy as flipping his hand. His greatest gain was that within the spiritual space, there was no external help. He relied on his own strength to fight, and his strength was displayed to the limit. Even after Lin Xian returned to reality, the virtual battle was still able to be reflected on his body. Lin Xian couldn't help but admire such a method. In the path of the sword, when the sword art was practiced to perfection, a trace of sword force would appear. The sword force was divided into beginner, small success, great success, and perfection. After the sword force was the sword intent. When they were in the outer sect, Lin Xian, Jiang Yulong, and the other sword moves were only at the entry level, so they could not exert much power. But now, Lin Xian had a seed of sword intent in his body. As long as he comprehended 10% of it, he would be able to trample most people under his feet. According to his estimation, the power of sword intent he could exert now was merely equivalent to the initial stage of sword force, and it could be said that he hadn't even touched the surface of sword intent. Tomorrow, he would go to the cultivation pagoda again and try to comprehend it as soon as possible. Lin Xian made his decision. The next day, Lin Xian was walking alone. When the inner sect disciples saw Lin Xian, they would point at him and whisper to each other. To this, Lin Xian just laughed. He went straight to the 3rd floor of the cultivation pagoda, found an empty room, and walked in. Sitting cross-legged on top of the array, Lin Xian once again entered the spiritual space. For 4 days, Lin Xian spent 2 hours in the spiritual space. Now, he had passed the 4th stage of Meridian's condensation 7th stage. Rumble! The bronze door slowly opened, and Lin Xian walked out with a thoughtful expression. He didn't have much time left, and he had spent 10 hours in the spiritual space. With a thought, he went to the management office of the cultivation pagoda. He wanted to ask how to obtain the time to use the spiritual space. The person in charge of the 3rd floor was a deacon in his 30s. When he heard Lin Xian's question, he replied expressionlessly. There are a total of 3 methods. The first method is to buy with spirit stones. 1,000 low-grade spirit stones for 2 hours. 1,000 low-grade spirit stones? Lin Xian's eyes widened. He finally understood why Yi Qing had that kind of expression. This was too damn expensive. What about the other 2 methods? Lin Xian asked. The deacon looked at him indifferently, but continued. The second method is based on the ranking on the stone tablet. Depending on the ranking, the time will be different. The third method is to exchange battle merit points. 100 battle merit points for 2 hours. So it's like this. Lin Xian understood. He couldn't obtain these 3 methods in a short period of time. It seemed that he could only use other methods to cultivate. He left with some disappointment. At this time, several disciples looked at Lin Xian's back and laughed sinisterly. That person is Lin Xian. He actually dares to oppose big brother Zhang Qian. Shikuan, go teach him a lesson. A slightly chubby youth laughed. I haven't fought in a long time. Let's use this kid to practice. The chubby youth named Shikuan chased after Lin Xian with a smile. Behind him, several other youths followed at a moderate pace. Junior brother, please wait! A voice came from behind Lin Xian. Following that, a white and chubby figure appeared in front of him. What's the matter? Lin Xian looked at the chubby youth in front of him and asked. I wonder if junior brother is interested in exchanging pointers? the chubby youth said with a smile. If you win, there will be a lot of prizes. Oh? Exchanging pointers? Lin Xian glanced at the Xunwei group's symbol on the chubby youth's chest and revealed a smile that wasn't a smile. What prizes? Can we bet on the time of the cultivation pagoda? Cultivation pagoda time? Shirkuin's chubby face suddenly froze. What kind of joke was this? This guy must be crazy. Junior brother, you don't know. The time of the cultivation pagoda is tied to the person and cannot be transferred. Lin Xian shrugged. Then I'm not interested. After saying that, he was about to leave. Unexpectedly, Shirkuin flashed and blocked Lin Xian's path. Junior brother, don't be in such a hurry. I don't have the time of the cultivation pagoda, but I do have other good things. Shirkuin tempted. For example, some materials. Do you have materials that can repair the soul? Lin Xian asked indifferently. Chubby Shirkuin was about to go crazy. Who was this kid? Why did he ask for such precious materials? If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't fight here, he would have beaten him up long ago. No. Shirkuin's expression was very unnatural. I don't have anything. I'm not interested. Lin Xian turned and left. Shirkuin was almost anxious. He said that he would teach this kid a lesson, but this kid didn't fall for it. In the inner sect, if you wanted to fight, you had to fight in the arena. There were a total of 2 types of arenas. One was the exchanging pointers arena, where no lives were allowed. The other was the life and death arena. Lin Xian and Zhang Qian's battle in 3 months would be in the life and death arena. Hey, junior brother, wait! Shirkuin cursed in his heart, but he still called out to Lin Xian. Okay, 500 spirit stones. Lin Xian turned and said. Shirkuin hesitated. 500 low-grade spirit stones wasn't a small amount. Agree with him. The other disciples transmitted their voices to him. Okay. 500 it is. Shirkuin gritted his teeth. Little guy, wait until we get on the arena. I'll beat you up. Lead the way. Lin Xian was delighted. How could he refuse to get 500 spirit stones? Soon, the group arrived in front of the exchanging pointers arena. Exchanging pointers was very popular in the inner sect. Not only could it increase one's strength, but it could also bring good luck. It could be said that many disciples were obsessed with it. Lin Xian and Shirkuin's exchanging pointers undoubtedly attracted the attention of the crowd. Hey, this kid only has a cultivation of the 6th level of the meridian condensing stage. He actually wants to exchange pointers with Shirkuin? He was probably cheated by Shirkuin. What an unlucky kid! The nearby disciples murmured. Some sympathized, some mocked. In their eyes, Lin Xian was a deceived newcomer who could only be abused. Chapter 72. Shirkuin and the rest looked at Lin Xian worriedly, afraid that he would run away. What made them feel relieved was that Lin Xian's face was calm and did not have any reaction. Humph, this kid looks stupid. He actually dares to challenge senior brother Zhang Qian. He must be tired of living. Shirkuin's companion sneered. Don't worry, I will teach him a lesson. Shirkuin's face was cruel. Junior brother Lin, how about I spar with you? Shirkuin asked. Lin Xian deliberately thought for a while and then said. Okay, I hope senior brother will show mercy. Shirkuin waited nervously, afraid that he would not agree. After receiving Lin Xian's reply, Shirkuin's fat face was full of smiles. Humph, I will show you my power in a while. After finding an empty stage, Shirkuin and Lin Xian walked up. Immediately, the surrounding inner sect disciples surrounded them. AI too stupid. This Lin Xian actually went up. Doesn't he know that Shirkuin is a Meridian Stage 7 cultivator? This Shirkuin is Zhang Qian's subordinate, and Lin Xian provoked Zhang Qian. I am afraid that he will be crippled before the 3 months of life and death battle. Below the stage, there was a lot of discussion. On the stage, Shirkuin sneered. Kid, you dare to offend senior brother Zhang Qian. Just wait for your death. What? You are Zhang Qian's subordinate? Lin Xian pretended to be surprised. Ha ha! A group of Xunwei group disciples laughed loudly, looking as if their evil plan had succeeded. Okay, you have seen what you expected. Hurry up and start. Lin Xian's original frightened expression disappeared and was replaced with calmness. What do you mean? Shikuan and the rest had a bad feeling. Lin Xian's change was too strange. What I mean is, I was just playing with you. Also, thank you for the 500 spirit stones. A layer of golden light appeared under Lin Xian's feet as he suddenly used the phantom thundersteps. He turned into a golden lightning and disappeared from where he stood. You 6th leveling my brat, you dare to talk big. Shikuan pulled out a top-quality sword and formed a sword wave around his body. F***CK. This Shikuan is really cautious. Even when facing a new disciple, he still chose to defend first. Many disciples recognized that sword technique. My water ripple sword ripple is an absolute defense. Even a cultivator of the same level as me would not be able to break through it. After he appears and attacks, I will counterattack. Shikuan instantly thought of a way to deal with Lin Xian. Shikuan's idea was very good, but he encountered Lin Xian. Ka ka ka. A crisp cracking sound rang out. Everyone looked over in shock. They saw that a hole had been forcefully torn open in the blue sword wave in front of Shikuan. A golden thunderbolt was wantonly destroying it. Impossible! How could this be? Shikuan's eyes were wide open. How could a 6th leveling my brat break through my defense? Before he could think, a white palm imprinted on his chest. Golden thunderbolts instantly crawled all over his body. An intense numbing pain caused Shikuan's body to constantly twitch. Then, he fell to the ground, losing the ability to resist. In one blow, Shikuan was completely defeated. This is the number 1 new disciple. Such terrifying strength. When did the new disciples become so strong? I'm looking forward to the life and death battle in 3 months. Lin Xian's strength shocked everyone. This seemingly weak youth's attacks were as fast as thunder. 500 spirit stones, handed over. Lin Xian said to Shikuan's companions. Several people unwillingly handed over the spirit stones, and then quickly dragged Shikuan away. They wanted to quickly tell Zhang Qian that Lin Xian was more terrifying than they imagined. Lin Xian walked down the stage and found that everyone looked at him differently. In fact, this was a very normal thing. The strong were respected. This was the rule of this world. The inner sect of the Black Heaven sect was no exception. After obtaining the 500 spirit stones, Lin Xian was in a good mood. He hummed a tune and left the battle area. In a luxurious courtyard, several disciples of the Xunwei group were whispering to Zhang Qian. Shikuan was one of them. You're saying that this Lin Xian is a rare thunder attribute cultivator, and can fight above his level? A blue-robed youth beside Zhang Qian asked. Yes. Shikuan said with lingering fear. His thunderbolts are very powerful. After coming into contact with them, I won't be able to use any strength. You guys are very considerate. This is a bottle of recovery pills. Take it and use it. Zhang Qian's face was calm after hearing this. After Shikuan and the others left, the blue-robed youth said, It seems that this kid isn't that weak. Maybe we can play with him. Humph. He's just an ant. Zhang Qian's eyes didn't have a trace of emotion. After a while, I'll be able to break through to the 9th level of the meridian condensing stage. At that time, my goal will be to become a core disciple. Hearing the words core disciple, the blue-robed youth's eyes flashed. He chuckled and said, It seems that this mission, your luck isn't small. Without the cultivation pagoda, Lin Xian's cultivation speed slowed down. He urgently needed pressure to stimulate his potential. Therefore, he found Yi Qing and asked her if she had any good cultivation places. When Yi Qing heard that he needed pressure to stimulate himself, she looked at him strangely. What a madman. For cultivation, he's so desperate. No choice. Between me and Zhang Qian, only one can survive, Lin Xian said helplessly. Your craziness is very similar to senior brother Luo. Yi Qing curled her lips. Senior brother Luo? Lin Xian remembered that he had a senior brother who was also under instructor Muro. What kind of person is this senior brother Luo? I've never seen him before. Lin Xian curiously asked. Come with me. I'll take you to a good place. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Yi Qing mysteriously said. Lin Xian, with a face full of doubt, followed Yi Qing out. The two were very fast, and soon arrived at the inner circle of the sect where the spirit beasts were raised. Why did you bring me here? Do you want me to fight with these spirit beasts? Lin Xian was even more confused. Stupid. Yi Qing rolled her eyes at him, then found the deacon in charge of the spirit beasts and rented a spirit crane. Hey, junior brother Lin, quickly pay up. Yi Qing urged. How much? Lin Xian asked. 500 low-grade spirit stones. What? Lin Xian stared at the spirit crane, then helplessly handed over the spirit stones. He found that in the inner sect, spirit stones were spent faster than water. Come up. Seeing Lin Xian hand over the spirit stones, Yi Qing smiled. This was a rank 1 spirit crane, the same level as a rank 1 demonic beast, which was equivalent to a human Sea of Soul Realm cultivator. This spirit crane was dozens of feet long, and on its back was a small house, which was very well fixed. Lin Xian entered the small house, saw Yi Qing activate the token, and the spirit crane spread its wings and flew up. Where are we going? I'll take you to see senior brother Luo, Yi Qing said. While I'm at it, I'll also introduce you to a good place to train. That's where all the crazy people gather. A good place to train? Lin Xian's eyes lit up. Is there a cultivation pagoda? Pretty much, and it's even more interesting than the cultivation pagoda. Yi Qing mysteriously smiled. Chapter 73. Misty City, the largest city in Yunzhou, was extremely prosperous. Lin Xian and Yi Qing landed when they were still 20 miles away from the city gate. The spirit crane flew back to the sect by itself, while Lin Xian and Yi Qing walked towards Misty City. From afar, they could see the black city walls of Misty City. They were more than 100 feet tall, and the entire city wall was made of obsidian, which was extremely hard. In front of the city gate, there were 2 rows of heavily armored guards. Each of them had an unusually strong aura, which was far from what Lin Xian and the others could compare with. Lin Xian estimated that the strength of these guards was around Meridian Stage 8. If they were in the Black Heaven sect, they would be ranked in the top 30. Of course, this did not mean that the disciples of the Black Heaven sect were weak. After all, there was a huge age gap between the two sides. The disciples of the Black Heaven sect were all 16 or 17 years old, with unlimited potential. On the other hand, these guards were around 25 or 26 years old, which was almost 10 years older than the disciples of the sect. Misty City was not only powerful, but the entrance fee was also shockingly expensive. Lin Xian and Yi Qing paid 300 low-grade spiritual stones to pass. Once they entered, the surroundings became lively. Half of the people coming and going were martial artists. Among them were disciples of the sect and wanderers of the Jianghu. There were countless of them. Follow me! Yi Qing pulled Lin Xian towards the center. In the center of the city was a huge palace that went straight underground. On the side, there was a tall stone tablet with 3 big words written on it, Martial Arts Arena. Lin Xian realized that the people who came in and out were either cultivators with high cultivation or disciples of wealthy families. Ordinary people would not come here at all. Do you have a martial arts battle token? A guard in a blood-red robe stopped Lin Xian and Yi Qing. The aura on his body was stronger than the guards at the city gate. We don't have a martial arts battle token, but Luo Qishan is our senior brother. If there is any fee, just put it under his name. Yi Qing was very familiar with it. It was obviously not his first time here. So you are young Master Luo's fellow disciples, please, the guard said with a smile. Looks like senior brother Luo is quite famous. Lin Xian was even more curious about this senior brother that he had never met before. That's right. Not only is Senior Brother Luo an inner disciple of the Black Heaven sect, but he's also a member of the 4 great clans. It's said that his clan owns the Colosseum, so it's very useful to announce Senior Brother Luo's name here. Lin Xian was surprised. He didn't expect Senior Brother Luo to have such a powerful background. However, he soon felt relieved. This would only benefit him. The inside of the Colosseum was very spacious and was divided into many levels. However, they only extended downwards. The first floor was equivalent to a hall. There were many places to rest. On one of the walls, there was a light screen formed by an array formation. Figures were moving on it. Lin Xian curiously looked over and saw 2 cultivators fighting. Their moves were ruthless, as though they were in a battle to the death. In the entire hall, almost everyone on the 9th floor was watching the competition. Many people were even placing bets to support the cultivators they favored. Some young women wearing light muslin were shuttling back and forth in the crowd with exquisite wine in their hands. This is... Lin Xian looked at the figures on the light screen and asked. It was similar to the spiritual space in the cultivation pagoda, and it was displayed using a high-level array formation. Yi Qing explained. The difference was that the 2 people inside were real cultivators and not virtual characters. Lin Xian suddenly understood. No wonder it was called the Colosseum. So this was how it was called. In this kind of spiritual virtual space, death wasn't real death. It was just a slight mental fatigue. However, the benefits obtained in the spiritual space could be completely reflected in the body. In other words, countless life and death battles could be carried out here to stimulate the potential in the body. There was no need to worry about death. It's really a good place. Lin Xian couldn't help but feel excited. How could one's strength increase quickly? Was it just closed-door cultivation? Apart from a few special races and special geniuses, others couldn't increase their strength if they went into closed-door cultivation for too long. On the contrary, it could be counterproductive. However, there was one way that was suitable for all humans, and that was to fight. Fighting with people of similar strength, fighting beyond their level, a life and death battle. All of these could stimulate the potential in the body of a cultivator, and thus obtain powerful strength. Don't be happy too early. The expenses here are very expensive. It's 2 mid-grade spirit stones a day, Yi Qing said. 2 mid-grade spirit stones. Lin Xian was shocked. The quality of mid-grade spirit stones was much higher than low-grade spirit stones, and the exchange rate was 1 to 1,000. In other words, in this Colosseum, doing nothing for a day would cost 2,000 low-grade spirit stones. Damn it! It's really violent! Lin Xian touched his chin and then said, If I can win the competition, the reward must be very generous, right? Of course. The premise is that you can win, Yi Qing said without holding back. Let's go, I'll take you to see Senior Brother Luo. Lin Xian followed behind Yi Qing and walked down the stairs, arriving at the basement level. The situation was similar to the main hall. This basement was also a place to rest, but the people here were obviously a level higher than the people above. Hoodlum! Where's Senior Brother Luo? Yi Qing said to a young manager. So it's Sister Yi Qing. Wait here, I'll help you call young Master Luo. The young man called Hoodlum quickly disappeared. Lin Xian and Yi Qing found a comfortable place to sit down. Soon, there were beautiful maids bringing in food and drinks. Yi Qing lazily leaned on the recliner and grabbed a spirit fruit to eat. Lin Xian looked at the screen on the wall. On it, 1 red and 1 blue cultivator were fighting fiercely. Although he couldn't feel the aura of the 2, but from the strength of the spirit energy released, Lin Xian could roughly judge that the 2 were both at the 7th level of the meridian stage. However, they were much stronger than ordinary disciples like Shikuan. The use of spirit energy and the precision of the moves were praiseworthy. Lin Xian's eyes flashed with a light, as if he had forgotten everything. At this moment, a handsome-looking young man quickly walked over. The young man was around 17 or 18 years old, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. His body was surrounded by a faint light, as if he was a god of war. The young man didn't deliberately release his spirit energy, but the light around him was still dazzling. "Junior Sister Yi, why are you here?" The young man's voice was very calm. "Senior Brother Luo." Yi Qing, after hearing the voice, happily jumped up. "Instructor Murong recently accepted another disciple, so I brought him over to see." "Oh? I have another junior brother?" Senior Brother Luo laughed. "Lin Xian, come over and greet Senior Brother Luo," Yi Qing shouted. However, Lin Xian, as if he didn't hear anything, was staring at the screen. This scene made Yi Qing pout, and she couldn't help but want to slap him. "No worries!" Who knew that Senior Brother Luo would stop Yi Qing's actions and then walk over? Chapter 74. Luo Qingshan walked behind Lin Xian and curiously stared at the fascinated youth. "Red team or blue team, who do you think will win?" "Red team," Lin Xian subconsciously said. "Although the blue team has the upper hand now, it hasn't caused any substantial damage. The long period of attack has consumed his spiritual power very quickly. On the other hand, the red team is advancing step by step. I believe that they will soon counterattack." Lin Xian's voice was not very loud, but the people around still heard it. Among them, there were some warriors who disagreed. They had bet on the blue team to win, so of course they would not believe Lin Xian's words. After Lin Xian finished speaking, he suddenly reacted. He looked back and found a youth standing behind him. "Lin Xian, you are too fascinated. You can't even hear me calling you. Quickly greet Senior Brother Luo," Yi Qing said snappily. The youth in front of him was actually Senior Brother Luo. Lin Xian was amazed by the dazzling aura around Luo Qingshan. He cupped his fists and said, "Lin Xian greets Senior Brother Luo. This youth is actually Luo Qingshan's junior brother." Many people nearby looked at Lin Xian a few times. At this moment, the battle situation on the light screen changed. The red team seized the blue team's mistake and quickly counterattacked and won the game. This result made the surrounding people look at Lin Xian in a new light. Some of the warriors who bet on the red team were naturally happy, but those who bet on the blue team fiercely stared at Lin Xian. "Boy, it's all because of your big mouth that I lost so many spirit stones." Someone angrily stood up. "Don't blame others for your bad eyesight," Lin Xian sneered. That person saw Luo Qingshan standing behind Lin Xian and did not dare to say more. He could only curse a few times and then angrily sit down. "Is that so? I also lost spirit stones, but I don't think my eyesight is bad. Instead, I think your mouth is too cheap. Why don't you slap yourself?" This voice stunned the surrounding cultivators. Who was this guy? Why was he so arrogant? Even Luo Qingshan's face darkened. Lin Xian's analysis just now was very reasonable and not nonsense. In addition, he and Lin Xian had just acknowledged each other as martial brothers, and immediately someone came looking for trouble. He was afraid that this person did not come with good intentions. Sure enough, after the voice sounded, a young man in a blue robe stood up. Beside him were several guards in black, standing respectfully. "It's actually Ling Zhe." Some martial artists recognized the blue-clothed youth. Luo Qingshan also frowned slightly. This Ling Zhe was also a disciple of the Black Heaven sect, and he was also a disciple of the Ling family, one of the 4 major families. His status was similar to his, and the relationship between the two families was not very good. "Why aren't you slapping him? Do you want me to do it myself?" Ling Zhe sneered. He had just lost some spirit stones, which made him very unhappy. More importantly, he had a good relationship with Zhang Qian, so he naturally recognized Lin Xian. Now that he had a chance to humiliate Lin Xian, how could he miss it? Lin Xian stared at the blue-clothed youth and felt the aura of the 8th-level meridian condensing stage. He smiled faintly. "Dare I ask this friend, who the F***ck are you? It's fine if you don't have good eyesight, but you're also so petty. You're still not convinced after losing?" Lin Xian's words carried a trace of mockery, echoing in the hall. The surrounding cultivators did not come back to their senses for a long time. Even the blue-clothed youth, Ling Zhe was stunned for a moment, but then his face was filled with viciousness. Brat, you're courting death! Ling Zhe crushed the wine cup in his hand. Whoosh! A black shadow shot out from Ling Zhe's side and attacked Lin Xian with lightning speed. It was accompanied by a shocking wave of heat. Crackle! A fiery red palm slapped towards Lin Xian, and the terrifying heat directly melted the surrounding tables and chairs. This black-clothed man's attack was very sudden and swift. No one could react in time. A scream sounded, and in the next moment, Lin Xian disappeared from where he stood, leaving behind only a few golden arcs of electricity. The black-clothed cultivator did not expect that his palm would miss. But before he could react, a glowing palm grabbed him, and the terrifying strength caused him unbearable pain. Not good! The black-clothed cultivator's face changed, and he looked at Luo Qishan with some fear. Get lost! Luo Qishan shouted angrily, pushing the black-clothed cultivator away and quickly looking in another direction. 30 feet away from him, Lin Xian's figure appeared. Junior apprentice brother Lin, are you all right? Yi Qing's face was pale with fright. I'm fine. Lin Xian smiled, but his eyes flashed. If he had been a step slower, he would have been a dead man. He would not cause trouble, but he would not let go of anyone who provoked him. Ling Zhe, you've gone too far. Don't you know the rules here? Luo Qishan shouted coldly. Sorry, this subordinate is new and doesn't know the rules. Ling Zhe said casually. Apologize to young Master Luo. Young Master Luo, I don't know the rules. Please forgive me, the black-clothed cultivator said respectfully. From beginning to end, Ling Zhe was talking to Luo Qishan, and Lin Xian was ignored by them. Lin Xian, don't be rash. Ling Zhe is a disciple of the 4 great families, and the power behind him is huge, Yi Qing whispered. And he has a good relationship with Zhang Qian, so you have to be careful. No wonder! Lin Xian suddenly understood. Although he was angry, he knew that if he fought here, he would not be able to walk out. The most important thing now was to improve his strength. With strength, even the 4 great families could be trampled under his feet. Senior apprentice sister, do you have spirit stones? Lend me some, Lin Xian asked. Oh, I do, Yi Qing said. Even Luo Qishan looked at Lin Xian in surprise. He was really afraid that Lin Xian would fight here. If that happened, it would be difficult for him as a senior apprentice brother. Junior apprentice brother Lin, if you want to use spirit stones, I have some here, Luo Qishan said. 5,000 low-grade spirit stones, is that enough? It's enough. Thank you, senior apprentice brother. Lin Xian took a purple crystal card and sat down. During the whole process, he treated Ling Zhe and the others like air. Humph! Ling Zhe snorted. He was furious. This Lin Xian's actions were beyond his expectations. First, he was able to dodge that fierce palm strike, then he was able to watch the competition as if nothing had happened. He had a feeling of being ignored, and this feeling made him crazy. Brat, if you provoke me, I will make you wish you were dead. Ling Zhe suppressed the anger in his heart, and began to think about how to deal with Lin Xian. On the other side, Lin Xian asked Luo Qishan some questions about the competition. Because it was a virtual competition, there were no restrictions. However, one had to pay 100 low-grade spirit stones to participate. Other martial artists would place their bets, and different martial artists would have different payouts. After Lin Xian heard this, he found that the rules were very simple, so he decided to give it a try. Before the competition, there would be information about both contestants on the screen, such as their cultivation and participation records, so that other martial artists could place their bets. The next match was between 2 post-condensation Stage 8 martial artists. Lin Xian was not in a hurry to place his bets, but carefully observed the competition. He had just arrived and was not familiar with these martial artists, so he wanted to take this opportunity to observe. Finally, after a few matches, Lin Xian decided to fight. Chapter 75. The thin 7th level meridian condensing martial artist that he favored was the martial artist that he predicted would turn the tide of the battle. This martial artist's name was Wu Ming, and he was still on the red side. His opponent was a martial artist named Feng Jing. 500 spirit stones on Wu Ming. Lin Xian placed his bet. Although it was Lin Xian's first time placing a bet, his previous performance still attracted everyone's attention. Humph! What an ignorant guy! Does he really think he can see through these martial artists with a single match? Someone disdainfully said. This Feng Jing is a martial artist with 10 consecutive victories. His 72-path opening wind palm is invincible. I'd bet 1,000 spirit stones on Feng Jing, the martial artist said loudly. After saying that, he looked at Ling Zhe with a fawning look. Ling Zhe nodded with satisfaction. Lin Xian, right? I'll make you lose so badly that you'll be stripped naked. Lin Xian didn't say anything else. After placing his bet, he leisurely leaned back in his chair and tasted the wine. This wine was brewed from spirit fruits. Although the spirituality was thin, drinking more could strengthen one's body. Should I also get some spirit wine to drink? Lin Xian thought of the spirit wine brewed by Lord Alcohol. Whether it was the effect or the taste, it was excellent. Hey, junior brother Lin, are you sure you can win? Yi Qing worriedly asked. I'd bet a lot of spirit stones with you. Don't worry, I guarantee you'll make a lot of money. Lin Xian was very confident in his vision. As a swordsman, it was very important to observe the opponent. Lin Xian had seen the matches of these two, so he was very clear on their weaknesses and strengths. That was why he was so confident. Not long after, the match began. As soon as the match started, the blue side's Feng Jing fiercely attacked. His large hands were covered in a fierce green light and were as fast as the wind. The red side's Wu Ming could only defend. Good! This opening wind palm really lives up to its name! Many martial artists cheered. Luo Qingshan elegantly drank his spirit wine and faintly asked, Junior brother Lin, aren't you going to compete? There's no rush. Let's familiarize ourselves with the situation first, Lin Xian said with a smile. While we're at it, we can win some spirit stones from the Ling clan. Luo Qingshan was stunned. Then, he smiled bitterly. It seemed that Lin Xian was still going against Ling Zhe. However, this was also good. He had long found Ling Zhe an eyesore. This time, he might be able to use this opportunity to suppress him. What do you have in mind? Even when Luo Qingshan was sitting down, there were 5 golden halos covering his body. It was as if a god had descended into the world. Senior brother, why don't we? Lin Xian suddenly sent a voice transmission. Yi Qing saw the two of them acting so mysteriously, and couldn't help but snort. She rolled her eyes at the two of them and then looked at the light screen with concern. After all, she had also bet a lot of spirit stones. After half an hour, Wu Ming of the red team successfully counterattacked and won the game. Yay, yay! Yi Qing happily jumped up. 1-3 ratio, I can win a lot of spirit stones. She cheerfully clapped her hands and cheered, attracting everyone's attention. The cultivator who had originally made the bold statement had a dark expression on his face. He wished he could go up and kill Hong Fang himself. Damn, what windbreaker! You're just a piece of trash! Ling Zhe's face also darkened. He had lost to Lin Xian twice in a row. This was simply unbearable for someone as arrogant as him. Who's next? Ling Zhe asked impatiently. Nie Tian of the Zixia sect and Bai Ji of the Blue Feather sect. Their strength is about the same, the black-clothed cultivator beside him said. Ling Zhe's eyes flashed. He didn't believe that Lin Xian could still win this time. Let's see who that brat bet on first. Ling Zhe waved his hand. Go find me 2 maids. Not far away, Lin Xian looked at the 2 people on the light screen and pondered for a moment. He chose Nie Tian. 1,000 spirit stones on Nie Tian, Lin Xian said. Whoosh. After hearing this, many cultivators followed suit and bet on Nie Tian. I bet on Bai Ji, Ling Zhe suddenly said. 3,000 spirit stones. As expected of young Master Ling. He's so generous. I believe in young Master Ling's judgment. Some cultivators followed Ling Zai. Ling Zai, who was holding a beautiful maid in his arms, said with an evil smile. In the past, their strength was indeed about the same. However, Bai Ji has made a breakthrough recently. I think it won't be a problem for him to defeat Nye Tian. Hey, how did you figure it out this time? Yi Qing asked. I didn't. I just guessed it. Lin Xian shrugged. I've never seen them compete. I've only seen their competition records. Betting? It's only interesting if there's a winner and a loser. You! Yi Qing clenched her teeth in anger. She had bet all the spirit stones she had just won. May the heavens bless Nye Tian. Yi Qing kept murmuring to the side. On the light screen, Nye Tian's left leg was suffused with a blue light like a gust of wind. His right leg was as red as fire. Two different types of power actually existed in the same person. On the opposite side, Bai Ji, who was wearing a silver mask, shook his long sword, which emitted a cold light. The surrounding air was almost frozen. Wind, fire, godly kick. Ice sword technique. The two of them used their strongest moves right from the start. Dazzling light overflowed, sword chi crisscrossed, and the surroundings were destroyed beyond recognition. Everyone stared nervously at the light screen, unwilling to miss any detail. In the end, Bai Ji slashed 13 times in a row. 2-meter-long sword chi danced in the air and buried Nye Tian's figure. Ha ha! As expected of Bai Ji. His ice sword technique is really amazing. Ling Zai played with the beauty in his arms and laughed impudently. Those martial artists who bet on Bai Ji's victory were also full of excitement and kept flattering him. However, before they could carefully savor this feeling of victory, the situation on the light screen changed. Nye Tian, who was covered by sword chi, suddenly burst out with powerful spiritual power. The two types of power, green and red, each formed a semicircle and intertwined with each other. They actually broke through the ice sword chi. Bang! Bai Ji was kicked away, turned into white light, and dissipated. The result of the competition had a shocking reversal. Those people still had smiles on their faces, but their expressions were as dull as wooden chickens. Ling Zai's mind also went blank for a moment. He couldn't understand how he could make a comeback in this kind of ending. Could it be that today was his unlucky day? Damn, King luck. Ling Zai went crazy with anger. He heavily caressed the girl in his arms, his eyes full of anger. The maid's eyes were full of tears from the pain, but she didn't dare to resist. He won, he actually won. Yi Qing almost couldn't believe his eyes. He gave up on that kind of ending, but he didn't expect to win. Was this guy lucky or just lucky? Yi Qing couldn't help but look at Lin Xian, only to see the latter stroking the purple crystal card in his hand with a cunning smile like a fox. This junior brother Lin is really amazing, but he can really cause trouble. Yi Qing tilted his head and thought. In the next few matches, Lin Xian could always predict accurately. The 5,000 spirit stones he borrowed had been paid off, and he even earned 3,000 spirit stones. It's about time, Lin Xian said in a low voice. Luo Qishan nodded, then called his subordinates and gave instructions. Everyone, please pay attention. The next match is very interesting. One is a mysterious newcomer, who hasn't participated in a single match, and the other is the winner of a 10-match winning streak, Qi Ju. The odds are 1 to 10. A deacon in charge said. What, 1 to 10? The crowd fell into a short silence, and then a burst of noise. Damn, this time we must bet correctly. Whether or not we can make a comeback depends on this. No, I'm going to bet all my money. I bet on Qi Ju. Most people chose the latter. After all, a 10-match winning streak was very difficult. Lin Xian slowly stood up, took out the purple gold card, and said, I bet on the mysterious newcomer. Chapter 76. Lin Xian's decision puzzled the crowd. They didn't know the situation of the newcomer, but they were very clear about Qi Ju's situation. Qi Ju was in existence with a 10-win streak. He was definitely the representative of great strength. One must know that winning streaks was very difficult, especially in this kind of virtual space. Because every time they fought, both sides were at the same level. The difficulty of obtaining a 10-win streak in such a battle was unimaginable. In the end, he's still too young. He doesn't know that there is always someone better than him. Many martial artists shook their heads and sighed. In their opinion, Lin Xian's decision was too impulsive. Ling Zhe was also stunned. He was worried that he couldn't find a chance to attack Lin Xian. He didn't expect the other party to take the initiative to deliver himself to him. He hugged the beautiful girl and half reclined on the rattan chair. He laughed arrogantly and said, "I bet 10,000 spirit stones on Qi Ju. 10,000 spirit stones!" Many martial artists sucked in a breath of cold air. 10,000 spirit stones wasn't a small amount. In the mysterious Sky Sect, it was enough to enter the cultivation pagoda for 20 hours. As expected of the Ling family's young master. "You're really rich," Lin Xian said with a smile. "Kid, it's too late to flatter me now." Ling Zhe's mouth hung an evil smile. Lin Xian disdainfully sneered. "I want to say that for a rich man like young Master Ling, even if you lose 10,000 spirit stones, you won't feel any pain. Am I right?" Ling Zhe's face suddenly sank. "You think I'll lose? Kid, do you know what a 10-win streak is? If you kneel down and apologize to me now, I can let you go." "No need. I'll take your 10,000 spirit stones first." Lin Xian domineeringly turned around and left. "Because the one competing this time is me. Junior brother Lin wants to compete?" Yi Qing had a shocked expression. When the others heard this news, they were relieved. When they saw Lin Xian so confident, they thought that it was some peerless genius from some sect that wanted to compete. Now that they saw that Lin Xian wanted them to go on stage, these people relaxed. They didn't know Lin Xian's strength, but seeing that he was only at the 6th level of the meridian condensation period, he shouldn't be too strong. F***CK, you scared me to death. Ling Zhe sneered. "Let me enjoy you being tortured here." Lin Xian walked out of the first basement hall and followed Luo Qishan to the second basement floor. The staircase spiraled downward, and the walls on both sides were inlaid with luminous pearls, illuminating the path ahead. "Junior brother Lin, are you really confident?" Luo Qishan was a little worried. This spiritual space was a little different from the one in the sect. The strength of both sides was determined by the one with the higher cultivation. Seeing Lin Xian's confusion, Luo Qishan continued. "For example, if you fight with a Ningmai 7th level person, your cultivation will also become Ningmai 7th level. So that's how it is." Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. This way, he would have the opportunity to experience the higher realms in advance. However, this had a disadvantage for martial artists of lower realms. They wouldn't be able to adapt well to the higher realms, and thus wouldn't be able to display their full strength. Lin Xian agreed with this point. It was normal for a Ningmai 6th level martial artist to not adapt to a Ningmai 7th level's illusory body, but he believed that he could quickly adapt. As they spoke, the two had already arrived at the second basement floor. This floor was filled with individual rooms, just like the martial arts rooms, completely sealed off. Lin Xian walked into a prepared room alone and found that the situation inside was similar to the cultivation pagoda. It was also a special array. Immediately, without hesitation, he walked into the array and sat down cross-legged. In the next moment, his soul seemed to leave his body and enter a strange space. Blue sky and white clouds, green mountains and clear waters, it was like a paradise. There were several pavilions in front of him, and many martial artists were sitting inside. Lin Xian's appearance caused the martial artists to look back. When they saw his cultivation, they immediately lost interest. "How can a Ningmai 6th level martial artist be so weak?" someone said with a frown. "Who knows, maybe he's new here." "Hey kid, what's your number?" someone asked. Lin Xian jumped up a few times, stepped on the stones in the water, and jumped into the pavilion. He said in a low voice, "Number 9. Number 9? Are you the one competing with Chiju? The young martial artists in the pavilion curiously sized him up. It's okay, brother. It's your first time to accumulate experience. Someone comforted him. Someone pulled Lin Xian and said, Look, the one in purple in the pavilion is Chiju. He's at the peak of the Ningmai 7th level, and he's best at the 8 forms of the extinction blade. Lin Xian thanked these young martial artists, and then looked at Chiju. Chiju also looked back, and their eyes met in the air. Humph! Chiju's expression was full of contempt. He stood up proudly, and said with his hands behind his back, Newcomer, you choose the arena. Arena? Lin Xian was surprised, and then he quickly understood after the martial artist beside him explained. The token in his hand not only represented his identity, but also allowed him to choose the arena. Lin Xian looked around and found that there were forests, valleys, arenas, villas, and other different places. I'll choose the villa. Lin Xian didn't care. What an idiot! Chiju sneered. The martial artists nearby also whispered, Brother, there's a gap between your cultivation and his. You'll definitely be promoted to the Ningmai 7th level in the competition. Newcomers usually choose places like forests, where there are many obstacles, to give them time to adapt. It's easy for Chiju to find a place like the villa. You won't have time to adapt. So it's like that. Lin Xian suddenly understood. Then I'll choose the forest next time. Seeing Lin Xian's casual appearance, the martial artists shook their heads. After 10 breaths, the two of them flashed and entered the villa. After Lin Xian stabilized his body, he cautiously looked around and found that he was in a square martial arts arena. There were many kinds of weapons on both sides. Lin Xian didn't immediately choose a weapon. Instead, he carefully sensed his body. He found that this virtual body had opened 7 spiritual veins. The 7 spiritual veins formed 7 circles in his body. Lin Xian could clearly feel that his strength and speed had increased significantly. He tried to throw a punch, and the spiritual energy in the 7 spiritual veins vibrated together, transmitting a powerful force. My strength increased by 70%. Lin Xian had a general idea. Then he used his footwork, and his body quickly moved around. Speed increased by 50%. Humph! Boy, you didn't run away. I don't know if you're confident or just an idiot. Just as Lin Xian was trying to move his body, Chiju appeared. In such a spacious place, you'll die. Chiju walked to the weapon rack and picked up a shiny long saber. Lin Xian also picked up a slightly wide long sword. Then he assumed the starting position of the thunderclap sword art. His eyes were full of fighting spirit. At the same time, in the basement hall, the 2 figures appeared on the light screen on the wall. The atmosphere in the hall became tense. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.